Right, this week I'm in Monterrey, Mexico with Jorge. So, what do you want to talk about today?
Okay, thanks for having me, Frank. Thanks for coming here to Monterrey, Mexico. And the way Frank contacted me, it was through X, because I have been posting a lot about Post SSRI Syndrome, and basically I took a few doses of escitalopram, an SSRI, one of the most common SSRIs, antidepressants, and I had an adverse reaction, and I stopped taking the drug, and it's been 2 years since I stopped, and I have a ton of symptoms. These symptoms have been present since day one. I have a full body numbness. All the body I feel it less. I do sense touch, but on the inside it's numb. I have a tingling in hands and feet, a constant tingling. I have a muscle weakness. I have sexual dysfunction. I have emotional numbness, brain fog, blank mind, cognitive symptoms. So I had a lot of symptoms. Almost all symptoms are like kind of fit into a neuropathy perspective, neuropathy category. So it basically post SSRI syndrome seems like, in simple, it could be said that it's like a numbing of the nervous system. And there's many hypotheses about why this happens, but
if I may interrupt, I think you're about to talk about what you think causes, or the hypothesis in general are, but what I'd really like to focus in on is what you think the causes are for you specifically, because from my perspective, you are the expert on you and your story and your circumstances. That's what you can state with 100% certainty.
Yeah.
And I'll also ask, is this where you want to start talking today? Does this feel like most important thing to talk to you about, or are there other things leading up to, for me personally, I'd also be interested in hearing about why you started taking, or ended up being advised, or whatever the story is behind that, how you ended up taking these drugs in the first place, and perhaps even earlier things that happened in your life. So where do you want to start talking?
For me, the hypothesis of why this happens, why the drug might cause this numbing of the nervous system. I'll not go into detail because those are that might be out of scope of
the podcast. I'd like to hear the details.
Okay.
It sounds like it's important. So.
Yeah. Okay. They kind of fit to what it is the general hypothesis of everyone. My hypothesis also. So basically, there is like one hypothesis, which is we have more serotonin. So the SSRI made the brain to. There's like sub-hypotheses about why this happens, but for example, one hypothesis is that the SSRI made it so there's less SERT density.
Less what density?
SERT. It's a very technical term.
Okay, I might not have heard of it.
It's like the SERT transporter. So basically, what if I remember correctly, the SSRI, what it does is that it blocks the SERT transporter, so that transporter doesn't remove serotonin from the brain, so it blocks it, so there's more available. Something like that, I remember. So this hypothesis is that the brain stays in a high serotonin scenario, but it's like very high. So that's like a hypothesis that we have very high serotonin, and that's
So one of the hypotheses is that the drug increases serotonin, and that in a state of high serotonin, that there's something to do with that.
yeah. So for some reason it stays even after discontinuing the drug. The brain stays in a high serotonin, and it has to do with the SERT transporter, which I don't know very technically the details, but it has to do with that. And so that's why many people with this syndrome get windows. Windows are the periods of time where the symptoms get better temporarily. We call them windows. So people get windows, for example, when they take cyproheptadine. Cyproheptadine, it's a
psychiatric drug?
No, it's I think it's an antihistaminic,
okay,
like for allergies, and apparently that also blocks serotonin, or I think reduces serotonin. I think it's called agonist. I'm sure.
So I've heard that word before. That sounds right.
Yeah. So many people report getting windows when they take cyproheptadine. I haven't tried it, but yeah. So that's one hypothesis why this happened. Another hypothesis is basically this is a immune disease, immune chronic disease. So the immune system reacts and it's attacking itself and causing neuropathy. An interesting fact is that many that have the syndrome turn out positive in small fiber neuropathy, which is a type of neuropathy that involves the smallest nerves, and that's as far as I know, it's not very well studied, small fiber neuropathy. So but yeah, those are two of the main hypotheses. Yeah.
So the first one, that the drugs increase serotonin.
Yeah.
To perhaps a level that's too high and that it stays there even after stopping the drug. And the second one is that the drug causes your immune system to attack
Yes,
you,
exactly.
and that leaves you with issues after.
Yes, exactly. Those are, I think, the two main hypotheses.
I can add one thing about because I also researched what psychiatric drugs do at a fundamental level, and what I concluded is that they alter, so there's about 500 trillion neurons, or actually synaptic clefts in the human brain, which are connections between neurons. So about 10 billion neurons, they form about 500 trillion connections with one another. More than 99% of those connections are chemical connections, and less than 1% are electronic connections. But as for those chemical connections, which is pretty much your entire brain, psychiatric drugs alter all of them. So
yes.
Really at a fundamental level, what I think psychiatric drugs do is that they alter almost all of the connections in your brain, like over 99% of them, which is, it's a big thing too. I think you can say that these drugs rewire your brain.
Yes, and it's very crazy because what caused me the syndrome is very little doses. Like I didn't took the minimal therapeutic dose. I was just starting, so I took 1/4 of the therapeutic dose, like 2.5 milligrams, and the therapeutic being 10 milligrams, and that was enough to cause me the syndrome. And yeah, these drugs are very invasive. Usually psychiatrists, which are the sellers of these drugs, usually they say they treat them as very light drugs, like very non-invasive soft drugs, but they do have a lot of influence in all the body. I met many people, even those that say the drugs are very fine for them and they good work, they do good work for them, but for example they get very overweight or stuff like that. Like, these drugs do a lot of change, and I think they should only be used as a last resort, but nowadays they really give them out as candy. But yeah.
Are you comfortable sharing how you ended up taking these drugs? I assume that
Yeah.
someone prescribed them to you. How did you end up seeing this person?
Yeah, so it's a long story. So
I got time, so.
yeah, very good. Just let me check the time. Okay, very good. So I'm going to go all the way to the start. Is it okay?
Yeah, great.
Okay, so get comfortable. But so basically, how did I started in all this? How did I get into psychiatry drugs and therefore get a rare syndrome? So I had OCD on my teen years. When I was a teenager, I had OCD. Only that. I didn't have any other issue. I just had OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder.
Can I tell how you, or why do you say that you had OCD?
That's a good question, because this might be a bit controversial, but I believe that OCD in many cases is not a problem, because to this day many doctors told me you will always have OCD and you will never get better unless you take medication for life. And now I kind of, in my past I don't know, 10 years, I am 28 currently, like I've been able to manage very good the OCD, and in these past 2-3 years I think very well, and like it doesn't fit with the idea that doctors told me that my brain was just different and it was like ill. But how did I knew I had OCD? Going to your question, where I was never diagnosed, but my symptoms were very obvious. Like, in fact, I had very bad OCD.
Can I comment on the thing she said first? So you were told you had OCD, but you began by stating that something along the lines, I don't think this is a problem per se, or something. I don't remember your exact words, but what about someone like Steph Curry, who is obsessed with basketball? That's obsession. What about someone like Alex Honnold, who is obsessed with climbing without ropes? What about, I mean, many people, billionaires are obsessed with making money. Many people have obsessions.
Yeah.
Why are those people not sick with OCD, which is considered an illness or disorder, and why are you labeled as being sick or disordered with OCD? Why are your obsessions not okay, and why are the obsessions of various other people okay?
Yeah, exactly. So that's something I've been telling many people is that. So yeah, I was I wasn't at that time diagnosed. I was later diagnosed with OCD, like years later. Like, I'm talking like 2 years ago. But at that time I wasn't diagnosed, but my symptoms were very obvious. But yeah, I think probably, well, I don't know, but many people with OCD, I think it's just emotional confusion. And in my case, for example, I think it was just a matter of putting all my intention into an objective that was, I think, the cure of my OCD. And who knows if I had done since my teenage years just obsessing with something, as those people you mentioned, like I could have done something great. But yeah, so I had
like if you had been encouraged instead of labeled as sick.
Yeah, and yeah, and well, also it was I didn't consult back then. I just read in the internet and I realized I had OCD. And my parents, well, I was very young. I was 14, 15. My parents also didn't do anything, so I just lived with OCD for many years. And it got very bad to the point where...
Okay. Yes. Can I now ask another question to dig it a little deeper? So you said you found it on the internet, and based on reading on the internet, you determined you had OCD?
Yes.
What made you read about OCD on the internet in the first place?
Yeah, so for example, when I was like 13, for that age, I started getting very obsessive with cleanliness, like being clean, to the point that, for example, all my things, I didn't let anyone touch my things. Every time I was going to use, for example, a book or something that I had like protected, I had to very carefully wash my hands. Like it was as if I was going to make surgery. Like I had to clean excessively my hands, and it was very obvious. Like all my friends, family members were knew about my obsession with cleanliness. Yeah, so like I came back from school, I would, I don't know, play video games, but before that I had to clean very good my hands. I had to clean very good, everything had to be very clean, and now I could play. And I started having trouble. For example, I started being very afraid, for example, of cybersecurity. For example, I started being very afraid of not only bacteria and viruses in real life, but also online. So, for example, if I was going to download a game, I would like download it and analyze it with many antivirus. I will get the hash of the downloaded file, and I will check it online if it was safe, and I will do many things like that. And that made me start researching like what is wrong with me. Why do I have this a lot of anxiety that even after like I had a lot of anxiety for certain things, and if I put some attention to it, it increases more, and to the point like I couldn't even think good. So I started researching online. I found out I had OCD because everything fit perfectly.
Make one more comment before you move on with the story. So to me it sounds like you also said you researched what was wrong with you, but to me it seems like your obsessions or maybe your ways of dealing with fears of, as you describe, either viruses, bacteria, or both like in the real world or online. So really it sounds to me like you were just scared of things. What, I don't know exactly. Yes. And that your way of dealing with that fear was to be obsessive in trying to protect yourself from the things that would maybe harm you.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything, personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So
yeah, so I think this anxiety was like my body's way of coping with things that were bad in my life at that moment. For example, my OCD appeared, and that fits when I started getting bullied at school. Like it was in middle school, I was bullied at school because I was the most youngest and the most lower height. So I was kind of a nerd. Well, I have always been kind of a nerd, so I was kind of bullied. And also in my family, my parents were very like toxic. How can I say, like a toxic family. Years later, they divorced, but they were always fighting with each other, and I think those two things caused my OCD. Like my body way of coping was like giving me more anxiety about certain things.
I think to me it sounds like those two things caused not your OCD per se, but your fears. Maybe.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
then
Yes.
because of the fears, as we just talked about, I think to deal with the fears, you try to protect yourself from the fears.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's normal and healthy and like the natural thing to do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
like to me, you cannot label those natural things of trying to protect yourself as a disease, which is what
Yeah.
the world does.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Yeah, it's like they put a label to that natural response, right? Like,
Actually, I think they do label the response, and the response I think is natural and healthy.
Yeah.
The response is trying to protect yourself from things that you think might hurt you, like viruses or computer
Yeah.
viruses.
yeah, so
labeling that as a disease, I think, is
yeah, so that's what I currently think, that really it wasn't like my brain was sick. It's just that it was my coping way of dealing with bad things going in my life.
Do you think your coping was sick?
No. I think my body was working fine, and if I had, for example, if I was able to talk to myself at that time, I would just tell it to focus in the problem instead of focusing.
Tell it. Why not tell me?
But no, I say it like in a way of telling me myself in the past, like I will tell myself like to focus on the problem instead of trying to live with the problem, and that problem was causing me these anxieties that were really irrational, but it was a way of not putting attention to the problem, and that causes.
You just said your anxieties were irrational.
Well,
Do you really think so?
they are rational, but it is irrational to put that much attention into those rational fears. What I mean by that is, like, for example, it is a real thing that if I drive my car, I can get killed by someone else crashing into me. Those are real things, and it's real to be afraid of them, but it's irrational to put a lot of attention to that, because of course there's risks in life, and if you put a lot of attention to a specific risk, then that's when it's irrational, and that's when clearly I think it's something I consider in my perspective a bad habit, and yeah, so yeah, but yeah, so basically I had this OCD behavior, as they call it. I was too much, I put too much attention into these anxious thoughts and anxiety, and I lived all my teenager years like this, and it came to a point that it got really bad. when I was like 18 years old. It got very bad, and this was months before pandemic. This was 2019, and at this point, for some reason, one day I was dealing with my usual rituals of OCD, and for some reason, like, I felt like something changed with me, and so I started getting, after that day, weird and like weird symptoms, and I think, I don't know how to call them, but I started getting like symptoms based on my emotions, like since that, when that day happened.
Can you be more specific about what you're referring to as symptoms and why you are referring to them as symptoms?
Yeah,
You
so
sound like a little bit like a doctor analyzing yourself.
yeah. So for example, so yeah, something changed. I don't know what happened in my mind that day, but like after I started like getting like kind of fever, like I would start feeling my body hot when I felt, for example, bad emotions, or I would when I would get anxious, my eyes would like swollen, and as if it was an allergy. So I started getting these weird symptoms. Also, that yes.
You also said that they were a result of emotions.
Yeah.
So your eyes getting red and swollen.
When I was anxious, yes.
You think it was directly caused by?
I think something. I think
I've
the
also, so like, I'm not saying that would be like, I myself have had many physical, I wouldn't necessarily say symptoms, but physical reactions to emotional states or experiences, which is also logical because, like our emotions affect our nervous system. A person who's angry is gonna have a lot of energy in its nervous system, and so that emotions such as anger, but I believe all of them affect your physical body. So if you believe that your anxiety directly caused your eyes to get red and swollen,
it could be, but I do have an idea. No, it was. I don't think I was causing it, but until a certain extent, it does.
There's a difference between you and your emotions causing it, or is there? Or just the same?
It's a complex topic, because I get your point, yeah, but in fact I have an idea of relating the syndrome with what happened to me at that time, because it has to do with and I don't really understand it yet a lot, but I think it has to do a lot of with our perception, the mind, the neurotransmitters, and for example, it is real that we can have psychosomatic symptoms, as doctors sometimes say PSSD is kind of psychosomatic. Also, there is like actual biological damage, like actual.
I don't know whether I would say that. I understand psychosomatic. I would say physical manifestations of emotions, but psychosomatic symptoms. But to say PSSD is psychosomatic, that to me is very strange, because I think when we're talking about PSSD, I think we're talking about like sexual drive or desire, which is that something physical? I don't know that that's physical. Also, the world, like society at large, when they talk about a person with, like a man with erectile dysfunction, they often say that it's like an emotional or mental block that's preventing. So even society at large, I think, like erectile dysfunction or PSSD, I think most people would say that that's not a physical thing. So I don't think psychosomatic is a label you can apply to that.
Yeah, no, it's something some doctors say. I don't think. I think PSSD is actual. There's something biological wrong. I think there's something actually wrong in PSSD. Uh, but yeah, so I started getting these symptoms, these weird symptoms, and I thought.
So this is in like 2019, right before
Yes,
COVID, right?
yes, 2019,
Okay.
right before COVID, and I thought.
And again, before you've taken any
Yes, before any psychiatric medication, and I thought something happened in my head because this wasn't normal. Like, what the only thing that was normal is my OCD, which during the years sometimes it completely disappeared, sometimes it got worse, but as we already talked, like it it was really most likely just natural behavior. And I do think also it had to do with my diet, because when I had more anxiety, I had a worst lifestyle. So I do think it has to do with exercise, diet, and stuff like that. But that was my normal me. Yes.
Yeah, they call it again. I think that's very normal. There's emotional binge eating. Many people like eat more when they're anxious. To me, it sounds like really the fundamental root thing that is causing some of these things were those fears that developed as a result of, you said, bullying at school, and I think also you talked about family things.
Yeah. Well, it's because when it went very very bad, my OCD. It was, I think, mainly due to my diet, because at that point I was only eating junk food, and like I had a terrible lifestyle. Like all days I will go to get like burgers and stuff like that, and yeah, but yeah. So I returning to this point where I got all these weird symptoms. I thought like there is definitely something different in my brain. I don't know what happened. I had no explanation, so I went to what I think it was the most logical doctor, which is a neurologist, because I said definitely something changed in my brain. Also, when this happened, when this changed, yes.
Talk a little bit more about this part, because you say that your OCD or your anxiety was quite bad, and you started eating badly, and obviously eating badly, logically makes us also feel a little bit worse. We eat like trash, we kind of feel like trash. But to go from that to actually thinking there might be something wrong in your brain and going out to see a neurologist, that's quite a big step. There are many people who feel anxious and eat poorly, but to go from that to like, is there anything more that caused you to see the neurologist?
No, it's just that my OCD got really really bad. I also had a terrible lifestyle. For example, at that time, and also it had to do because of external factors in my life that caused me to have a terrible lifestyle. But for example, some days I would only eat one time in the day, and it was like Carl's Jr., like it was like fast food, burger, fast food, and only that, and the next day the same, and the next day the same, only like trash food. And that at that time it was when this thing happened. One day just it was like this, and I started getting these weird symptoms, and the thought of I have never felt this way with these weird symptoms that made me go to the neurologist.
So there was something that happened from one day to the next, kind
Yes.
of, that made you feel a lot worse?
I once it made these symptoms appear.
Which symptoms exactly?
The
eating, or?
No, the getting a higher body temperature
When it's so nice.
and the eyes.
Okay.
And
That makes sense.
those symptoms, that made me say
understand
there's
now why you
definitely
went,
something wrong, and I went to a neurologist.
I understand now why you
Yeah.
went to see your neurologist. Those are
yeah.
Big changes.
And also, yeah. So I went to a neurologist and I told them my symptoms, and of course, I used to think that doctors knew a lot, and they do know a lot, but many times they don't accept when they don't know everything. So I went with this neurologist, and I explained what happened to me, and he just laughed, and he thought it was ridiculous. And just to summarize, I made him prescribe me an MRI just to see if everything was okay, and a blood test and several tests. He prescribed them, and I was good in everything. And then this neurologist told me, okay, so everything's good. I think you have depression. And he just told me, like, here is some free, I give you some SSRIs. It was sertraline, and that's how I started taking medication. Like, just as that, he just told me, like, here, take them. Just take one each day. And
Neurologist prescribed them.
yeah,
to you.
neurologist. And I started with sertraline, and then after several months, I actually started feeling depressed. I wasn't feeling depressed before, but the SSRI kind of made me feel depressed gradually. I think it was like numbing my emotions, and so but it was very gradual. Like after several months, I will start feeling very differently, actually depressed. And then the neurologist changed to escitalopram, and in fact he took escitalopram. He also consumed escitalopram.
The neurologist took these drugs himself.
Yeah, he was consuming. In fact, I have some crazy stories with this neurologist, because he was, and I think it was due to the fact he was taking psychiatric medication. For example, he tried to date my mom.
What?
He was trying to date my mom later, and we had suspicions he was still married, and yeah.
Yeah, this neurologist sounds sketchy as hell.
Yeah, definitely. And
You wanna name him or?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But no, in fact, at what point he just told me like this. He told me, "Hey, I have a new machine. Do you want to try it?" And it was TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. But he told me like this: "I got a new machine. Do you want to try it? I'm going to offer you a free session." And just like that, like no protocol, not nothing, like just, "Hey, do you want to try my TMS machine?" And like that, like he was a bit crazy, and but yeah. So yeah, I took escitalopram then for 1.5 years. Those SSRIs actually made me depressed. And just to give you an idea, I have always been like a nerd in school. I have always been very like, I was fascinated by physics, mathematics, and I would always read non-fiction books. Like my friends will go out to Paris and stuff like that, and I will stay reading like calculus books and physics and stuff like that. And when I was taking SSRIs, I was another person. Like I was always on Paris. I was that's where I got very into hiking and rock climbing, but sometimes I would climb without a rope also, and like in sometimes I almost die, and I think it was due to the SSRI numbing my emotions, and I would try to seek emotions. So I was doing very crazy stuff. Like I really should have died in those things I did.
Was it like you do that dangerous of things that?
Yeah, like I will climb without a rope. I will get very near, like how you say, precipicio, like where you can fall off a mountain. Like I will get very close and not be afraid at all. Also, like sometimes I will go to like everyday party and drink and stuff like that, and without sleeping I will go climb a big mountain.
So
And
to me, it almost sounds like you were perhaps a little suicidal, even whether perhaps you weren't aware of it, but at least.
well, I
Maybe
definitely didn't want to die, but I like
some of your behavior
like
sounds quite.
like adrenaline was very I was seeking adrenaline, and yeah, but no, I definitely didn't want to die.
Okay.
Yeah, also, like I was completely uninterested in school, and I failed my first course ever, and because I didn't go to classes, like I was another person when I took the SSRI. And at one point I started reading online, and I saw that SSRIs had very bad effects, and that's when I decided to discontinue. And I asked the doctor, hey, I want to discontinue.
Can I ask the
Yes.
timeline? So you started taking these before COVID in 2019,
Yes.
and how long did you take them for before you
Like
decided to continue?
sertraline was 6 months, and then I switched to escitalopram like for 1.5 years.
So in total, you took some form of drugs, psychiatric drugs, SSRIs for 2 years.
Yes.
Okay, and
2023 is when I started tapering.
but that would be 4 years.
Uh,
2019, you said you started, and you started tapering in 2023.
No, sorry, I started in 2020. Let me see, 2023, 2020, or I think it was 2021.
Okay.
I think it's because the period where I kept seeing the neurologist, and all the, like I told you, he prescribed me to do MRI and several studies. That took several months. So all 2020 I did several studies and stuff like that, and I think it
COVID
was
lockdowns as well.
yes,
Okay.
and it took many time, and I think it was at the end of 2020 when I started, or at the start of 2021.
Okay.
Somewhere there.
And a little over 2 years you took them before you started tapering.
Yes.
Can you talk more specifically about what caused you or made you decide to
Yeah.
stop taking them or start taking less?
Yeah, so I actually had what people describe depression. Like if you search symptoms of depression, I had them when I was taking the SSRI. And I think it was the SSRI was causing me depression.
So it's up to you. Like many people say depression. I personally tend to say I feel depressed or I am depressed. So when you say I have depression or someone has depression, you're kind of referring to depression as an illness.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I think depression is either feeling depressed is like a feeling, or being depressed like a state of being, or perhaps a combination of both. Personally, I do not see it as an illness.
Yeah, no, you have a point. Yeah, that's why I said I had what I had what people say. How can I say, like what the symptoms? I had the symptoms that are associated with the condition of depression. Like I think
I understand what you're saying, but then you're describing
you're
describing Jorge from the perspective of others of society. You're kind of talking, saying,
I
"Oh,
understand.
Jorge, I have depression," as if you're describing you from the perspective of others. I think I personally am a proponent of describing me from my own perspective.
Yeah, no, I do get your point. So I just to make it simpler, I was feeling uninterested in life. I didn't have interests. I was just seeking adrenaline. I was all my interests of the past were inexistent. So I just only adrenaline was what made me live. I wasn't interested in having a job, in school, in anything. And right after discontinuing the SSRI, all my interest returned. So yeah, why did I stop the SSRI? Because I had this uninterest of life. I had some emotional numbing and like that. And also, I started reading online that these things do affect your brain and stuff like that. So I decided to stop it.
So you read online that the drugs affect your brain in combination with all these depressive feelings and thoughts
that weren't there
you
before
kinda
starting. Yeah.
made the link between the drugs and those.
Well, no, I didn't make the link when I read online. I already knew that these drugs were causing me this, but the doctor kept telling me that you have to give them time, you have to give them time. So that's why I kept taking them. But when I read online that there's people that have a very hard time with these drugs, I told myself, well, I think it's better if I stop them. And that's when.
So initially it was kind of a battle between what you kind of already knew deep inside and what the doctor, who supposedly knows better than you, right, is telling you.
Yes.
And then once you read online about what many other people's experiences with these drugs that kind of make you, whatever word you want to use, maybe not believe the doctor so much anymore, start listening to what you were feeling.
Yeah, in fact, I went to another doctor just to get a second opinion, and he wanted me to duplicate the dose. So he double the dose. So I think it was a good decision for me to stop the medication. And this neurologist, he told me I could stop like very quickly, like in 2 weeks. But I read online and I saw that people sometimes take months to gradually taper, like reduce dosage. So I made my own taper plan. I didn't follow my doctor's advice. So I lowered it myself and it went perfect. I stopped and I felt happy as ever again. Like I felt very happy for many months.
You say you make your own taper plan?
Yes, and I lowered myself and it went everything.
What was your own taper plan?
I tapered like within 2 months.
Okay.
From 10 milligrams, I tapered within 2 months to 0.
Okay.
It was longer than what my doctor told me. And it went very good. I stopped and I didn't have any issue and I was very happy. So after a long time, I finally was happy. I finally was by myself, and that happened for several months. And then I started again with OCD. That's when OCD started. But OCD really is not something as bad as all what I have dealt with. I started with OCD, and this is in 2023. So I was having difficulty with OCD, and at one point I had a very specific anxious thought, or obsession. I think obsession is a better word. I had a specific obsession with I don't want to go into specific what it was because it's a long story, and also I'm a bit embarrassed of that. But that obsession made me take again the SSRI, and I took it for 1 week. very small dose, 1/4 of the minimum therapeutic dose. I took it for 1 week and stopped without issue. So
Stopped what?
And stopped the medication. So I took it for one week and stopped in 2023 due to the OCD.
Why did you stop so quickly?
Because I just so I had this obsession, and I decided to take it a very small dose to see if this obsession goes away, this anxiety goes away. And I don't remember if it actually did or not, but I just wanted to stop because that small dose was numbing me, was emotionally numbing me. Nowhere near as it is today, just to clarify, because now I have mentioned that when I took the medication, it actually numbed my emotions, but nowhere near as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, they are very, very numb. So
Stopped after 1 week.
so I took it for some days and stopped, and nothing bad happened. It went everything as usual. I just mentioned this because it's important to note that escitalopram, I took it for several periods and nothing happened, nothing bad happened. And in 2024, I took only 1 dose, and that's what caused me the syndrome. So 2023.
What month of 2024?
What part?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get there at the start of 2024.
Okay.
But let me get there. So in 2023, I made this. I took it for 1 week, and then months later, I did the same. I took it again for 1 week, and nothing bad happened. A very small dose again, not even 5 milligrams. The minimal is 10 milligrams, not even 10 milligrams. And it's for OCD again. And at the end of 2023, I was visiting many psychologists. I was seeking help to manage these obsessive thoughts. And then I started reading a lot of books and getting involved with the OCD community and in forums and stuff like that. And at the end of 2023, I had it very good managed, the OCD. I had it very good, so it stopped being a problem finally.
Well, like one note again, as we talked about earlier, it was kind of like it sounded like the underlying fear caused natural responses to protect you from things you were scared of. Now, when you talk about managing, or it sounds almost like controlling your natural responses,
it's because
that serve to protect you from things that you think will harm you.
Yeah.
How do you think that's like a good approach?
It's because I think, how can I explain? I think there's a state, we can get to a state in where we have a lot more anxiety, but abnormally, like a physical state, and that will be considered where you have OCD. Like, how can I explain? I get the point of that. There's fear, and we have a normal response to actual fear. But I think that when that fear starts being irrational, like you actually become obsessive to the point that it's not healthy, like a healthy obsession. I think because there's actually something physical wrong, but I think that's a very complex because it could not be specifically that you are sick, but maybe you have fallen into a spiral of anxiety and bad habits. But I think it's a complex topic.
So you describe the fear as irrational, but you think it's the fear that's irrational, or perhaps over time your responses to the fear may have become irrational?
The fear, it's a complex topic, and I think people would get confused, it's a very complex topic to the point that psychology and psychiatry, even if they are well intended, we can't understand it yet because I think it's too complex for now. But
I don't want to push you to talk about something you don't want to talk about, but I think it may be too complex for others to understand your fears, but my belief is that it's not too complex for you to understand your own fears.
It's I mean, it's I think OCDs, I think it's a complex topic. I have a lot to say about it. I think it might be.
Do you want to talk about it, or it's up? I think it's up to you.
I think it might be better if we talk about it in another part.
Okay.
Maybe in another video, because there's much to say, and I think it will. Like, I'm going chronologically.
Okay.
I think
Go ahead.
Yeah. So let's call it like this. So I started. It's because I get your point about OCD, about calling.
You say you want to continue chronologically, at least first for now. You were talking at like late 2023, going into 2024.
Yeah. So let's say I had these OCD symptoms under control, and so these fears, I wasn't dealing with these fears. I had a much better emotional life now, and so everything was going good at the end of 2023, and 2024 came in, and I was dealing with a bit of social anxiety, and I think it's normal. Everyone has a level of social anxiety. If you have absolute zero social anxiety, then I think you are probably drug or something like that. But I think everyone has a level of embarrassment, right, to do social things.
I don't think I do, but I don't care what other people think about me. I only care what I think of me.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
But I understand many people do. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Well, I had a certain level of social anxiety, and I wanted to attack that social anxiety. And one way, I think the most logical way, it is to socialize more. But I was talking, in fact, with my friends, and we were talking about approaching girls, like in Paris and stuff like that. And one of them was saying, like, I smoke to like normal tobacco, like normal cigarette. I smoke to lower anxiety and approach. Another friend told me, like, alcohol makes me feel more secure and stuff like that. And I told to myself, like, what if I took the SSRI in a very small dose? Like, what could go wrong with doing that? So in fact, I told my friends, what if I take a very small dose and then I'm going to feel very secure? Because when I took the SSRI, I didn't have any social anxiety. Like, that's why I think they call it the SSRI stare. Have you
SSRI what?
Stare, like I stare, like if you
stare.
Yes. I don't know if you had heard that term before, but I think that's why they call it the SSRI stare, because people can look you at the eyes without any like emotion, because you kind of lose all social anxiety, like all social normal behavior with SSRIs. So yeah, I decided to take a very small dose of the SSRI, and part of my reasoning was also I had many arguments why would I try that. One of them is that in the past I was able to take it for several periods and nothing bad happened. Another argument is that, for example, there is an SSRI called dapoxetine, which is used as needed when you are going to have sexual relationships. It is used.
Wait, what?
Yes, when you're going to have sexual relationships, you can take dapoxetine, and it is used to treat premature ejaculation, like you last longer.
There's a psychiatric drug that treats premature ejaculation.
Yes, it has a very low half-life. Like, I think it gets out of your body in a few hours. So I told to myself, well, if dapoxetine exists, then I could take an SSRI as needed. So I had that argument. Also, another one was that I was taking a very small dose. At one point, I asked one of my doctors. To this date, I have asked many if there could be any problem with taking a very small dose, even if needed, and all have told me that no problem, absolutely safe. So I had many arguments, and I decided to take the small dose. I took it one day, exactly, I think it was January 7th, 2024. I took it, and then immediately, minutes later, I didn't like it because it numbed my emotions. So I decided I don't want to take it anymore. And the next day, I still feel the same. And the next day, now the drug got out of my blood, because escitalopram has a half-life of 30 hours, I think. And 2 days later, I started with PSSD, just after one small dose. What symptoms did I started having? I started having anhedonia, like I literally lost part of my emotions, mainly romantic emotions. So I literally, that feeling of love when you think of the person you love, it was numbed, but it was like kind of cut. Like, I imagine like it's a nerve involved, and it felt like it was just cut.
Like a nerve, like a wire connection in your brain, perhaps?
Yeah, like if it was just cut, like completely mute. Like if you put in the control remote mute. And also when I look at women, sexually it was extremely lowered. My response sexually when looking at women, it wasn't completely mute at that point, but it was almost like 95%. And those two symptoms were the first ones that appeared. And I didn't know I had PSSD yet there, because for many reasons. One of them is that PSSD is generally diagnosed with the numb genitals, or there's a diagnostic criteria that many doctors proposed. I think it was mainly David Healy, and based on that criteria, I didn't have PSSD there, but it was PSSD. It was just a very mild form of PSSD.
You're clearly describing very severe changes.
Yeah.
As a result of taking that drug.
Yeah. So yeah, I just took very small dose, around 2.5 milligrams, and days later I started with this. and it was very weird. This time I went to a new doctor. I didn't want to go to the other crazy neurologist mainly because he was trying to date my mom. But yeah, so I went to a new doctor, and this doctor just told me it's not possible. One dose can't make that. It's not possible. And he told me, based on what you say, you have depression and anxiety. He told me in Spanish, cuadro depresivo ansioso, which in English is, I think it will be like the translation. You have a, how can you say? I don't know what will be the translation. Like you have a scheme. I don't know how to.
Scam?
I don't know how to pronounce it.
SCAM?
SCHEME. Scheme.
Oh, scheme.
Yeah, you have a depression and anxiety scheme. I don't know if that will be the correct translation, but cuadro depresivo ansioso in Spanish. So he told me that, and he prescribed me the same SSRI. He told me, take this, and I told him, like, are you crazy? Like, why would I take the SSRI that caused me the symptoms?
Exactly.
And so I just didn't listen to him, and I researched a lot online, and I thought, well, maybe this happened because I only took one dose. Like maybe in the past I took it for several days and it didn't happen. Like maybe it was a peak in my nervous system. It was like this, and it was only one peak. Like maybe that caused me the syndrome. So I decided to take it again on February, weeks later in February. In fact, I have made a graph. I have posted many times this graph where I show these experiments I made and the symptoms it caused. Maybe you could put it in the video if you want to edit it later as you wish, or share it in the description, but I made a graph and there I show these experiments. So on February I decided to take it again. I started with, I think, 2.5 milligrams, or I don't remember, but very low, and I took it for 4 or 5 days, very low dose, and very interesting, my symptoms, my PTSD symptoms went away when I took it. This is not a unique case. There's many cases of people with PTSD where they take the same drug that caused it, and they get windows or get permanently better. It's a known thing, but it's like playing Russian roulette. It can go terribly wrong. Like it can make you a lot worse. So I don't think it's worth risking it, because as I will explain later, I made myself a lot worse. That's why I have a lot of symptoms. So in this experiment in February, I don't know if I have. No, I was going to tell you that I have my tablet, but I don't bring it. But I could show the graph in my laptop if you would like.
The graph with your experiments.
Yes, I could show it here.
I added in the
or you prefer to
or
add
something
it
along those lines, or no?
Because I could show exactly because my memory, I don't remember exactly how many days I took it, but as you prefer.
If you want, go ahead and you can grab it down if you prefer. I can cut the next minute.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to. On February, I took it for these several days, and my symptoms went away. So surprisingly, and I stopped, and my symptoms came back. So that was, let's say, the first experiment after getting the syndrome, and I kept researching. I went with a new psychiatrist, and this psychiatrist.
New psychiatrist or your first psychiatrist?
No, a new one.
So you had seen a psychiatrist earlier. Initially it was a neurologist, right?
Yes.
When's the first time you saw a psychiatrist?
So I saw this after I got PSSD after this first dose. The one that told me you have a cuadro depresivo ansioso.
Oh, okay. That was a psychiatrist.
Yeah, and he was new. And then after I made the experiment, I consulted with this new one. Another new one. And this new one was actually very rude, and he kind of, because I started explaining to him everything that happened, and I even showed him like publications, and I showed him that this escitalopram, even if it's a very small dose, it affects a big quantity of the brain. Like I showed him one study where, like, it affects
over 99% of your connections.
And he kind of laughed it off and told me he's an expert and he's a professor, and that I shouldn't be behaving as a knowledgeable person. Yeah, he was very rude. In fact, I'm not sure, I think I actually recorded him. Like, I have recorded several of my appointments, but I haven't released them yet because I would like to take legal action, maybe at that point, and I don't know if releasing them will be a good idea now, and I don't even know if it's legal. I don't know.
I think so. I think the truth should be legal.
Yeah, but so I did this experiment in February, which is this one here.
Okay.
And then at the start of March, I decided to experiment again, and I took 2 doses, only 2. That's why here you can see 2 hours. And again, my symptoms of PSSD went away. And when I stopped, my symptoms came back of PSSD. But this time, and this experiment, that's why I wanted to show the graph, because it's a lot of explaining, but on this time, new symptoms appeared.
So after you stopped taking them, it got worse?
Yes, it got worse, and that's why in the graph I describe a lot of new symptoms. Like here it was only 3.
One showing video, but in small text.
Yes, there's a lot more.
That's great.
And yeah, that's when I started with cognitive symptoms. Like I started with brain fog and blank mind, they call it. And weeks later, I experimented again, and it's the last experiment here. And I started with a high dose, and I reduced, and at the end, I took a bit more of what I should have taken, and that's when I got a lot worse instantly. Like minutes after taking that last dose, I got a lot worse, like incredibly worse. And since that day to this day, 2.5 years have passed, approximate.
Over 2 years, right? This was March 2024?
Yes, over 2 years.
Over 2 years, yeah.
And I have been the same. I have a lot of symptoms. And so yeah, that's basically how I got this.
Initially, it was like no sexual desire, no sexual or very little sexual interest in girls, and then she did a few experiments based on the advice of the psychiatrists. while you're taking them, you get better, but then once you stop, it progressively get worse and added things like cognitive function, declining cognitive function, and various other.
Yeah, and by the way, um, I asked this second new psychiatrist. I asked him if I was okay doing these experiments, and if like I asked him if it was okay, and he told me yes. I just want to clarify because many people tell me like you should have seen a psychiatrist, like you should have like the psychiatrist actually told me that these small doses were insignificant, that they couldn't do anything, and he told me that I should take more the whole dose. And I just clarified this because it isn't as me mortal, because many people see psychiatrists as the authority.
Yeah.
Yeah, it isn't as if I just decided to do all this stuff on my own. No, I actually asked these two psychiatrists like, if it's okay if I could do this, and they told me yes, nothing bad should happen. It's an extremely small dose, not even it will have any effect. So yeah.
So from your experience, even in extremely small doses, they
Yeah,
are incredibly
definitely.
dangerous
Yeah.
based on your personal experiences.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, so yeah, basically I got post SSRI syndrome. When I just got it, it was very. I got a lot of symptoms. Right after that last experiment, my symptoms like triplicated. Like I got full body numbness, like all the body, I feel it less inside. Like on the inside of my arm, I feel it numb all the time. I have muscle weakness. I have chronic fatigue. I have difficulty speaking. Um, like I was a lot more fluent speaking, and I can't imagine what I'm going to say. Uh, it's a new symptom, and yeah, I started with sexual dysfunction. For example, I can't get a proper erection after this. Like it's crazy. From one day to another, I lost the ability to have a proper erection. Like it just completely, I don't know, almost destroyed my soul, because like my emotions are very very numb, very yeah. So like almost all the time I feel I'm kind of drugged or high. That's how I feel almost all the time, but it's not a pleasurable feeling. It's just I'm extremely numb. That's how I feel. And yeah.
That's
Yeah.
horrible, disgusting.
And so what have I done after this happened? Well, for the first months I actually wanted to die, because I realized that there's no treatment, no cure. I realized that there's a lot of people harmed, damaged by psychiatry. And once you get an adverse reaction, they kind of put you aside. Like
Whose reaction?
adverse reaction.
Once you got adverse reactions.
Yeah, once you get an adverse reaction with psychiatry, they kind of move you, put you aside. Yeah, so I realized the severity of the situation, and I actually wanted to die. I it was not I wasn't intended to kill myself or something like that. It's just that I was losing all hope of getting better, and I thought this was the end, because I couldn't keep living like this. And yeah, and as months passed, I started realizing that I did have some good moments. Like I started realizing that even with all my symptoms, I could enjoy. life until a certain extent, and that kept me going. And after the first year, I started getting very involved with activism and with the community, and like that, I became a moderator of the PSSD subreddit. I became one for several months, and then they kicked me out because I was against their censorship.
You're censoring the PSSD subreddit?
Yeah, the main mods are very like over censoring people, like to a extreme way. Like many in the community have complained about this, and I told the mods while being a mod, and they just didn't like me and they kicked me out.
What do you want to share what they're censoring specifically?
It's basically, for example, they are very strict. Like if you say like I have been with PSSD for 2 months, they just censor your post because you need 3 for it to qualify according to the criteria, to the diagnostic criteria that was published by many doctors in 2019. There's a PSSD diagnostic criteria that was published.
So if I get it right,
they're very strict with
moderators on the PSSD subreddit want to be gatekeepers of who has and who hasn't.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, they do based their qualifications based on the diagnostic criteria, which is kind of a formal way to do it. But that diagnostic criteria was made in 2019 and also or 2020, I don't remember.
I'm starting to see a trend here. Psychiatrists want to be in charge of who is sick.
Yeah,
actually, American Psychiatry Association, they make money off of deciding what is and what isn't a mind sickness. And even now the people, doctors writing criteria for PSSD, they want to be in charge of what PSSD is.
Yeah.
Seems to me like these people just want to be in charge of other people.
Yeah, it may be kind of human nature until a certain extent.
I don't know about human nature, but a lot of people are like that, yes.
Yeah, but so yeah, for example, so they are very strict in that. Also, for example, I had a friend that had his post removed several times because he didn't have good grammar and spelling because English wasn't his main language. So his post was it wasn't well written, and that made the mod do not approve his post. And there's many things like that. For example, certain hypotheses, as I told you too, certain hypotheses are the mods don't like those hypotheses. I don't really remember which ones because at that time I wasn't really knowledgeable of the hypotheses as I am now. But at that time I remember there were some that the mods didn't like and they used to not approve those posts. Also, for example, if someone said they had another condition, their post was also censored because the mods will say, hey, you have this other condition, so it's likely you don't have PSSD because it may be this other condition. And like that. So in fact, when they kicked me out, I made another subreddit called Post SSRI Syndrome. But it isn't as popular as PSSD, which has, I think, 20k members now. And yeah.
I feel like I interrupted you a little bit because you were talking about the things you were doing around that time.
Yeah, and
so you had been wanting to die, not like intending to, but wanting to die, and then you got active in communities. And
yes, so yeah, I was a moderator of the subreddit, and then I made a website called Post SSRI Syndrome. The thing is that PSSD stands for Post SSRI Sexual Dysfunction, and it makes emphasis, it focuses on the sexual symptoms. So I have always been like kind of very supportive of giving more awareness to a more general term, because let me just drink a bit of water. Yeah, because it's very hard to explain. When I tell people I have PSSD, like, and I tell them what it means, they don't, like, I'm talking about something sexually, and then I tell them I have memory issues or cognitive symptoms, and that's when they start thinking this guy is crazy. Like, what does it has to do all these symptoms with sexual dysfunction? That's why I have trying to give more popularity to the other term, Post SSRI Syndrome. So I made this website, Post SSRI Syndrome, and when, and in fact, those mods criticized my website a lot, the mods of the subreddit. But yeah, so I made this website, and then I made the same website in Spanish called Síndrome Post SSRI.org, and I started making videos to raise awareness. I started making videos in YouTube, TikTok, and X, and to this day, many people have contacted me. Mainly, I have made more content in Spanish because there's not PSSD. It's popular it's an English term. In Spanish, there isn't a popular term. I think the only popular term is Síndrome Post SSRI, the one I'm using. So I started making content for people that speak Spanish, because there isn't anything. Like, if someone has the syndrome, they tell their doctor, and their doctor, of course, doesn't even know this exists. And if they don't know English, they can't find they have the syndrome. So that's the main reason why I started focusing in Spanish. And so I started making a lot of content in Spanish, and I started making many people started contacting me, many Spanish speaking people, and to this day I think I have talked with almost 100 people, and we have a WhatsApp group, and we have I have their contact information. Many people in Mexico, in Spain, mostly Spain and Mexico, and Argentina, Colombia, Uruguay, Bolivia, in all Spanish-speaking countries. We have recently started making like weekly Zoom calls in Spanish, and yeah, I have also been involved. I have been collaborating with the PSSD network and with other projects of the community, of trying to raise awareness, trying to raise funds for research and that stuff. I myself have done many more testing. Almost everything has come out good.
Testing?
Yes, like more blood tests, more brain scans and stuff like that. Everything has come generally good. The only thing that has come bad is insignificant. And yeah, right now I expect research to come. I'm waiting for research. Every day I'm I am suffering every day. I do feel terribly every day, and every day I try to think about hope for keep fighting, um, because yeah, I'm extremely emotionally numbed, um, and and yeah, and yeah.
So thanks for sharing that entire story. Um, there's three things I have in my head that I'm gonna put to you, which you wanna and see where you want to talk about them. First off, yes or no? Do you want to dig further into? I guess like, so it seems like for you, it started with the OCD, like the what we've kind of described as natural behavior in response to underlying fears. Do you want to dig into those underlying fears and talk more about those? And you kind of alluded that they have two causes. Do you want to talk more about the childhood bullying and or your family situation?
Um, mm, I could talk about that.
It's completely up to you.
You said three things, and the
Okay,
third one, which
see if I. Oh, the second one. It's another suggestion. Whether you want to talk about whether. So it seems like a lot of the solutions you're looking into for the things you're experiencing as a result of these drugs lie on like very much that physical and biological side. Like whether it's your brain or other parts of your body or nervous system, that whether there's something wrong with that, would you be curious to talk, interested in talking about whether it might be like like there might be emotional causes or reasons for the things that you're experiencing. That's the second one. And the third one, I heard you talk a few times about not being able to enjoy life much anymore, maybe here and there every now and then. Are you interested in talking about whether death is the end of conscious experience, and whether whether enjoying life is something, you know, worth striving for in the first place?
okay. I'm willing to talk about the three. I just think the first 2 points you say, I think it's better if we record it in another video,
Okay.
because I have many things to say and I'm really a bit tired.
Okay.
We could make another video.
You can also pause here for today.
Yeah, well, I can go for the third one,
Okay.
mainly because also it's raining and I don't want my things to get
Okay.
wet. Just let's wait a bit.
Okay. We can talk about the third one.
Yeah.
So do you think that is the end?
No. So what am I? So here's 2 points. One, do I think I think you mentioned 2 things. Like one, if it's the end, and two, if like what's the pleasure or purpose of living? You meant?
So it sort of touches upon what the purpose of life is or goal of life, but I guess the question I have: to what extent do you think enjoying life is important?
Yeah. So if it's the end, no, it's not the end. I'm waiting for research, and if I'm very desperate, I will experiment again. I think the cure to the syndrome might be taking the same medication but in certain way, because I think that kind of uh, moves a certain knob, like there's a knob, like a switch, right? A knob you turn, like a volume knob, and I think that gets activated with the SSRI, and you can put it back to the initial position with the same SSRI. So I think the cure might be something there. Um, so yeah, I don't think it's the end. But I'm afraid if I take it again and get worse, then it might be the end. I don't know.
Wait, I was talking about death, like dying,
Yes, yes.
like whether after we die, whether that's the end of us.
Okay, I understand. Okay, okay, sorry. Um, okay, so you want after.
That was the third question.
Yeah,
When
okay,
we
I
die, is
understand.
that the end of us, or is there
Okay,
something
yeah.
after we die?
Okay,
And
okay.
then, with the answer to the question, your answer to the question,
Yeah,
to
okay.
what extent do you think enjoying life is important?
Okay, I get it now. Okay. So, okay, after we die. Um, yeah, I think it's over after we die. Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because as far as I know, uh, we don't have. Uh, we might jump into a bit controversial subjects because many people are religious and stuff like that. But as far as I know, there isn't any good evidence that there's something more apart from we dying and just yeah. For me, consciousness, as I see it, is just a result of our body, our genes, our chemistry, and once it dies, it dies. Like there is not like a soul or something like that in my perspective. Why? Because I don't see there's good objective evidence. As far as I know, maybe some people know things I don't, but I'm open to it. That's how I see the world. And yes.
First, let me ask you: do you want there to be something after you die?
Yeah, of course.
It was totally up to you.
Yeah, of course, of course. I would like, if there was a God, I would like to be that there is a God. Like I would like.
Do you think there has to be a God for there to be something after we die?
No, not necessarily. Like I would like to be. I would like if there was something more to there.
Right.
Could be one God, many gods, or maybe we don't really die. Maybe our soul stays there. I don't know. But of course, I would like something else.
So I think it's the evidence for there being something after we die, or for death not being the end, is overwhelming. And my reason for it is that the example I always use is a young girl who gets raped and murdered. Like, if that were to be the end, that would mean that there are humans and all the experiences, birth, rape, and death. I mean, to me, I just refuse to believe that that is possible. I just refuse. One, I refuse to believe that is possible, and two, if somehow it was proven that that is the end, I think objectively humanity's goal should be to exterminate itself, to make sure that such horrible lives aren't possible anymore.
Yeah. The thing is, I think nature is it can be very ugly. Nature. Um, yeah, I think some people do suffer a lot, and that's because things happen. Uh, the, yeah, the universe happened like that, and mm, also consider something that, um, for example, uh, for the universe, I there isn't an objective wrong or good.
Objective what?
Objective wrong or good. Like morality, it's very much.
Oh, Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
and
very interesting.
like for example, you say you tell that like a girl get rapes and dies and stuff like that. Like for the universe, that's just things moving, like particles reacting. For the universe, it's really morality. It's nonsense. It is a lot to us, but for example, for bacteria, the fact that a human suffers, the bacteria doesn't care about that. So I think, yeah, uh, for us, we give a lot of importance to morality and to suffering and stuff like that because our brain has higher abilities, capabilities, and we are kind of shaped uh, to be a bit of altruistic and moral and stuff like that. But yeah, as I see we are just a result of the random universe. And some people get to suffer more and some get to suffer less just because of randomness. That's how we see it. Yeah.
There's two things. One interesting thing is that you describe the universe as something that's conscious. You say that the universe doesn't care. You would imply that the universe as a whole, all these bits and pieces and atoms and all those things, those are conscious. No, I'm just observing that. And the second thing that I found very interesting, you started out by saying that nature is ugly. I I think it's like the opposite, kinda. I think nature is generally beautiful. Like if you look at animal species, for the most part, at least compared to humanity, right? When you're an animal, the worst thing that can happen to you is, getting eaten by a predator and dying. But I think as a human, there are things that can, I mean, I've experienced it myself personally. There are things that are worse than that. Um, you can want to die so much that you're willing to die, to take your own life, which is pretty horrible. It's a very lonely, scary thing to take your own life. And people in that state get prevented from doing that and get locked up and in psychiatric facilities and are forced to live out lives even worse than that. So I think nature out there, away from humanity, is generally pretty good. It's just I think there's something wrong with humanity and perhaps some other things, but
Uh, well, regarding the thing I said about the universe doesn't caring, I mean that uh, it's hard to explain. I meant in a way that um, mm, that yeah, it's because however I say it, it implies the universe is something
yeah,
conscious.
implies it's like the universe itself is
Yeah,
like a god type entity.
but I mean the exact. What I mean is that completely the opposite. The universe is just there, and just because it's not something conscious, it doesn't care because it's not something that can care.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
That's a
and
good point.
and what I mean about nature being ugly, I mean that nature is it's not moral.
I would like to touch upon that though. I think you do make a good point about the universe that it's like neutral, it just is.
Yes.
But even then, looking at the universe, and if you were to describe the universe sort of as nature, isn't it kind of? I mean, there are things I don't like about the universe, to be fair, but isn't the universe also kind of beautiful? Like, if there weren't any living things in it, imagine the universe is no living things in it. There's still quite a lot of beautiful shit going on. Even on planet Earth, there's like natural phenomena and like thunderstorms and like tornadoes and.
The thing is that
out in the bigger universe, supernovas and exploding stars and all the shit, isn't that still kind of cool?
The thing is that beautiful is a human perception. Like when we say it's beautiful, you need a human perception because it's we could define beautiful that is something we could say pleasurable to the human, because if there's no human, then beautiful to what? It needs to be beautiful to a subject. And when I say nature is ugly, I mean that nature is full of bad things according to the humans. Like it's all relative to us. And since nature is as it is, it's not something. Of course, there's suffering, there's randomness, and judging by our perception of what's good and bad, ugly and beautiful, nature is all of them combined because it's full of randomness, it's full of suffering, and yeah, some people get a very good life. Some people get a very horrible life, and I think we as humans have the capacity to shape nature to our usefulness. I think if we lived in an ideal world civilization, which I think we are going to approach one day. Well, hopefully, because we could go to World War III and all go to war. But if it hopefully goes toward progress, I will expect to nature be shaped in a way that suffering for humans is reduced to almost zero, because theoretically it's possible. I mean, if we all focus, for example, on beating cancer, on beating genetic diseases and many diseases, we could do it. I mean, we have a lot of capacity. The problem is that there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of bad people there, but if we focus on the important subjects, we could reduce suffering and shape nature to our way. I mean, we could even find a way to become, I don't know, kind of immortal. Maybe once I'm too old, maybe they get my brain and put it in a new body, and that way we could live forever and yeah, reduce suffering. But that, yeah.
There's one other last thing that I heard you talk about earlier that I wanted to ask you about. You kind of stated that something along the lines of that we can't prove that something is wrong or right, wrong or good. You said something like that, right? Yeah, I strongly disagree with that. I think we can very much prove that some things are wrong. So my perspective is that you cannot prove that something's objectively good because of the existence of preferences. Like I can't say that sushi is good because some people just don't like sushi. I cannot say that apples are the best fruit because different people, different preferences. So on the good side, I think it's preferences. There's no objective right. But on the wrong and the bad side, I think you can very much prove that certain things are just wrong. Do you not think that you can prove that some things are inherently wrong?
Yeah, I mean, morality, I think is subjective, but we as humans are our moralities overlap, and we can all agree to certain things being generally bad and generally good. For example,
now you describe it as we can agree on things being
because
wrong.
here's the thing.
I'm asking soon as well. But from my perspective, you can actually prove that some things are just wrong.
It's because
There's for me, from my perspective, you don't have to agree that some things are wrong. Some things are just wrong. Like such as owning another human being,
owning.
like owning another human being in the form of slavery,
Okay,
for example.
okay, I understand.
Like that's, I think you can prove that that's wrong.
Yeah, the thing is, that it's subjective because you think it's wrong, but we know in the past that many people thought it was okay.
Yeah, but they were wrong, I think.
According to your morality now and according to the mainstream morality now. But morality has changed throughout the time, and we don't know if in the future it will be correct. And until a certain extent, owning people, I think it happens today in a different way. For example, here in Mexico, salaries are kind of low, and the boss, the one that pays, many times have a lot of power with the people, and in certain extent it's still a load, and they think it's correct, and I'm sure in other places in Africa or something like that, a more direct way of slavery happens, and the people that do it think it's okay. So I think morality is completely subjective. Even if we think about killing someone, I think for some people it might be justified, and that's according to their morality. Now, how do we know who has the correct morality? And I think that's, we're going into a very philosophical topic, but for example, that's why I told you we can generally agree, but at the end of things, morality is completely subjective, and I think whoever is in power kind of will decide what's wrong or right, and can make people change their minds and stuff like that. But
yeah, I very much agree with that. What you're describing as what's right and wrong, or at least and we'll drive maybe to this, but what's wrong, that's kind of decided by the majority.
But yes, but well,
I think that's
kind of, because whoever is on power can make like propaganda and stuff to shape the major public opinion. Like for example,
yes, I agree that this is going on, but I think you can prove that is wrong. So even though perhaps the people in power, or perhaps we live in a world with 100 people and 99% of the people say that something is wrong, but it doesn't necessarily, like for example, Nazi Germany, like most of the people in Nazi Germany, the vast majority said that Jews were inferior beings, but were they? Like, I say they weren't. And I say that the majority was like lying and saying this is wrong or this is, but it's not.
But not always the majority, not always the morality of the majority is the one that prevails. I won't say what is correct or wrong, because for something to be correct, it needs to follow, it needs to be based on something. And if I say this morality is correct based on what? Like, who determines what is right or wrong? Is there an objective morality? I don't think so, because based on what? The majority, as we have seen in history, changes. Like 50 years ago, for example, gay couples were seen as wrong. Nowadays, it depends on what population you ask, but nowadays it's not seen now as wrong. Like it changes, and it will always change, because Morality is
In that example that you gave, I would go more to fundamentals. Is there anything wrong about two humans having a relationship that both want to have a relationship with one another? I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
yeah.
I think if you prevent two, like, so person A wants to have a relationship with person B, and person B wants to have a relationship with person A, that's just the relationship. And if person C, D, E, F, G, and the rest of the world wants to come in between those people and prevent those two people from having a relationship, I think that's objectively wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what the majority says. I think that's objectively wrong.
Yeah. I get you.
So I think there are things such as this. This is one example, but I think there are many things that you can prove with logic that are objectively wrong.
The thing is that
regardless of what people say. It's not the way it works today, but
no, yeah, I get your point, but the thing is, we're going into a complex issue, and I would like, I would like to,
today.
yeah, we could pause, yeah, but I would like to continue this topic if you like.
Okay.
But yeah, we can pause.
It's up to you. We can talk a bit more. I don't know, but you said earlier that you.
Or let's make a small pause just to stretch.
Okay.
Can we make a small pause? So, on the subject of morality, so you think it can be determined? So you think morality can be objectively determined?
What's wrong? Yes.
Yes.
Like, I think some things are objectively wrong, but I don't think anything can be objective. Like, for example, the purpose of life or the goal of life, I think you cannot objectively determine what it is.
But for example, how do you determine something is wrong? Like,
I think you can do so via logic.
For example, what rules should we follow to determine if something is wrong? For example, I don't know, tell me something you think is wrong objectively.
Well, I have one example just now. If two people want to connect with one another, I think it's objectively wrong to stop those two people from connecting.
But in what are you basing it is wrong? Like, you need like a principle that it violates to determine if it's wrong. Like, to put you an example, let's imagine mathematics. In mathematics, if you say something is wrong, you need to argue why it's wrong. Like, is it following the principles? Like, in morality, what principles, if they are violated, something is wrong? Like, based on what principles? Because just to put you an example, like, if you tell me not allowing, like, I guess you can say it is the principle not allowing, like by principle it is wrong to not allow two people to get together. You could argue that that's just a principle, objective principle, which is also not objective because based on what? But for example, there's like many cases in where you kind of doubt of that. For example, what if it's 3 people getting together or 4 people getting together? What if it's a minor with an adult? Do you understand me? Like, it gets more complex. You kind of need to define some principles that will determine whether something is wrong or right. But those principles are purely subjective. Like, it depends on every person. However, we can agree all together into a general set of principles, and I think that is what the law is. That's what the law is.
On on the wrong side on what's wrong. I don't think that's something agreed upon. I think there fundamentally are things that are wrong. And
It's because, for example, what will say like the Muslim governments, they are completely against that. They will argue. Do you understand me? Like they think the opposite of you. Like who is wrong or right?
you're starting to think start thinking up about more complex issues. I think it's better to go more fundamental to more fundamentals. And I haven't had to verbally explain these too much. I've written about some of these topics a little bit. I think, if I'm not mistaken, what it's all written in for me is boundaries. I think you can prove that certain boundaries need to be respected. Like there's, like the example I wrote about is a world with two people in it, a boy and a girl, and they live together in a house. Now, objectively, I think everything should be decided 50-50, and they both have an equal share in deciding. But imagine that they both have one room for themselves. An example I use is the woman has a yoga room for herself, and the man has a game room for himself. Then the man is allowed to control that game room, and for example, say to the woman, "You're not allowed to enter. Like if I'm playing games in my room and there's something urgent, you can yell my name, and if I say it's important enough, I'll come up, but this is my room, you cannot come in here, I don't want you to." And same with the woman's yoga room, the woman might put boundaries on her yoga room and say, "Hey, guy, you can knock on my door and ask for permission to enter, but only if I say yes are you allowed to enter, and you can do yoga with me, but you have to ask for permission first." It's like in that house where a man and a woman live together, everything should be equal except for those two rooms that they have for themselves. I think I think that's logic, but like it's okay to, that world that they can own their own room, but again, like owning another human, I think that's objectively wrong. I don't think you can make an argument for that not being wrong.
Okay. The thing is, let's not see humans, let's see animals, for example.
Okay.
Let's see dogs, for example. And let's simplify it as your example. Let's put a female dog and a male dog in a house. For the male dog, I think dogs also have morality. Do you think that? I think dogs know that some dogs do evil and they kill their puppies, but generally dogs don't go and kill their puppies. Like they know what's wrong or good until a certain extent. And if we put those two dogs in a house, for the male dog, I think it would be correct to how can I say be dominant over the female dog. Like the male dog.
What were you saying? It can be correct.
Sorry?
Well, sorry, what were you saying? It can be correct for the male dog to be dominant?
No, yeah, that for the male dog, like from his perspective, like the moral thing to do, the moral thing might be like he is the alpha and he controls the house.
Yeah, but that's like it's 50-50. Why would the male dog have more right to that house than the female dog?
Okay, another example. Let's say, let's say I'm here seated in this chair, and I assume I just killed a lot of bacteria by sitting here. So, if so, according to your morality, uh, we should be fair and distribute. But I assume you mean distribute uh, in fairness to our species, because um,
I think another way perhaps I can describe it is what is someone allowed to put boundaries on and what is someone allowed to control. And I think in that example I gave with a man and a woman live in a house, I think it's objectively true that the house should be, or a world, perhaps all of planet Earth there was just one man and one woman. I would say that it's 50-50 for them to decide. They both have equal right to it.
oh,
Perhaps
okay.
like
Um,
and it might be okay. They both might decide, oh, I have one room that's completely mine. The man might say that, and the woman might also say, I have one room that's completely mine, and they can, set the rules for their own rooms.
what if there's a
But
what if there's another living organism in there? Let's say a dog. Does he has rights, or he's owned by those humans?
One other thing, so I personally think it's illegal to control other humans or put boundaries on other humans, which it's done all over the world, but I think that's fundamentally illegal. But to answer your question, now you first have to answer the philosophical question: is a human more important than a dog? Yes or no?
Yeah, that's it gets very complex.
Is a dog equal to the two humans in the picture, or
and also, what will happen if and what if one of the humans it's very was born like very disabled without capacity to actually be reasonably? Maybe it has, I think it's called, like the brain didn't develop, like it's a very small brain. Does he has the same rights? Um, like it's very complex, uh, and yeah, and I see you're kind of basing the morality on humans are equal, deserve the same. I guess that's your principle.
so yeah, like.
But
Otherwise, you're going to get into really dangerous territory if you're going to say that some humans have more value than others.
yeah, but
It's a very slippery slope.
yeah, no. But I'm trying to be neutral. I'm not supporting any view here. But that you're basing morality based on that principle.
I think fundamentally, there are things you can put boundaries on, things you can control, and things you cannot control. I think fundamentally you're allowed to set rules for yourself. For you, you're allowed to control you, but I don't think you're allowed to control others. So, for example, if I want to breed, that's fine. If I do not want to breed, also fine. But if I want you not to breed, if I don't want you to breed, that's fucked up, obviously, right?
Yeah.
If I control myself, my own breeding or no breeding, that's fine. If I control your breeding or no breeding, that's not right. That's wrong.
I get that.
And
but
then things in between, like physical space, I think you can still make strong arguments, but especially for humans, it's like.
Yeah, I get that, but that's what I mean. I mean, you are basing morality on a principle that everyone is equal, everyone deserves like fairness, like it should be fair for everyone. But the thing is that you believe that is correct, but it is not for everyone. Like not all people. Even you might think it's logical, but if you analyze it, it has holes. It's not completely logical because first, as I told you, what if one is disabled and the other not? You can't give the same. For example, in your example of one room and the other room, the disabled person can't even care for his own room. Like he has to literally be cared by other human, even to the point that the other human determines everything for that person. Do you understand me? Like, um, yeah.
So this might be an issue if there was incredible resource scarcity. You know, like, so for example, if let's say the world consists of 10 humans and you only have enough food for 9, and there's one who's like disabled, who cannot, you know, like, or maybe I should even say it, you can even, yes, in that case, you know, you have food for 9, and this is the way to explain it. So there's a world with 10 people, and 9 of them can go out and gather food for one portion for one portion to keep one person alive. And there's a 10th person who is incapable of going out and gathering food. So now if you put it all together, you have 9 portions of food, you can keep 9 people alive. Logically, you're going to keep the 9 alive who can go out to gather food. If one of the people who can gather a portion of food gives its food to the disabled one, that person's going to die. And cannot go. Now you have 8 portions of food for 9 people. If again one person gives the food to the disabled person, that person dies. So now you have 7 portions of food for 8 people. If you continue doing that, you're all going to die.
Yeah, so your mean is not sustainable.
Yeah, so the logic there is that you prioritize you put you first. You know, if all those people do that, they feed themselves first, and then only if those 9 people can gather a 10th portion of food together, then they can feed the disabled one.
Yeah.
But if they don't have enough to provide for more than their own portion, then they provide for themselves and let the disabled person die. That's logic.
Yeah. I understand.
That's why this is the proof. I also wrote about this.
Yeah.
The proof that you gotta put you first. You can't put others before you.
Yeah, I get that, but that I was referring to the part of distributing from the part of it's because it's a complete issue.
Well, so you put you first, but there's a lot of people in the world who not only put so yeah, if we're talking about food and dying, yes, put you first. But if you got food, you got a house, you got cell phones, computers, you got for luxurious foods, you have sports cars with luxury goods, you start buying yachts at the same time as there's people starving and homeless, then, you know, what are you doing with yourself?
Okay, so
that's, you know, some people think it's more important that they have yachts and then other people have food, and at that point it's like, what the fuck are you doing?
I have a question for you, like, answer this. So you think it's immoral to stop 2 people getting together? Like, let's say a man and a man. You think it's immoral to stop them?
Well, what are we talking about? I mean, I think it probably in any way, but are you specifically
No, romantic. Yeah, yes.
Like, how do you define romantic?
Like, gay sex.
Or a man and a man have sex?
Yes. You think it's immoral to stop them?
Would you think it's moral to stop any 2 people who want to have sex?
And what if it's a minor and an adult? Would you think it's immoral?
It gets more complicated.
And do you yeah, how would you define?
So one thing I will say is that a person, you know, at least the way the law states it, when you're 1 day away from being 18, you're unable to consent to sex, and when you're 1 day over 18, you're able to consent to sex. But are you really that different over that 2 day period?
Yeah,
So
but
I will point it out about the law, that the law is, it's kind of arbitrary.
okay. And how could you determine it? Like, do you see how it's a bit subjective? Like morality, like you can't really objectively determine it. How do you determine it?
I would fundamentally hold to my point that if two were to want to have sex, then they should be allowed to have sex. It's just, I think the obscurity and the gray area comes in is like at certain ages, are you able to understand what sex is, what's involved in having sex? Is it something you're able to consent to? That's, I think, the question. And I also think that's not the same for every person. Some people are mature more rapidly and are probably able to consent to having sex, are able to understand what sex is and what it involves,
And
younger than
also,
others. So it's a complicated topic. But
that's, and also that you have the fact that maybe you have an adult, but maybe that adult is mentally disabled and he really can't comprehend. Maybe I think it's something to consider. Just as a child can't comprehend, a mentally disabled person can't comprehend. Maybe
True.
maybe she gets pregnant and she doesn't know, she doesn't understand about it. So
I think the fundamental way I would personally approach that is if I was concerned about someone not being able to consent to, and sex is one thing, but I think parents have the same thing with like maybe their child getting a tattoo or maybe smoking or all sorts of things like this. There's many of these topics, sex is just one of them. If I was concerned that the person wasn't able to go and make that decision for itself because it didn't understand it fully, I would perhaps temporarily prevent the person and try to communicate with the person and try to help it understand why I think
but
it would not want to. But I would say that that restraint has to be temporary. Eventually, you have to let a person make its own
but
decisions.
do you realize that it's not easy to have a universal rule of morality? Like you told me first that it's wrong to stop two people from getting together, but there's cases where maybe it is moral to stop them.
Like,
Would you agree on that? Like there's cases where if it's a child and an adult, maybe you should stop them. If it's a mentally disabled person, maybe you should stop them.
if the two people want to be together, no. The question is, do you know as outsiders whether those people actually want to be together?
Well,
There might be like you might as outsiders think, oh, this person doesn't want to be with the other person. If you know for a fact that both people want to do something together, whether it's go out for a meal or have a conversation or live together in the same house or have sex or whatever it may be, if you know for a fact that both people want it, then it's wrong to come in between.
even if it's a child and an adult.
If you know that the child wants it, then yeah, if you were to know that the child were to want it, then yes. The question is, is the child able to understand it enough? And like there's a communication error. If you know for a fact that the child wants this, the child, just like an adult, it understands the decision before it. It understands the difference between yes and no. It's able to, evaluate all these things and make a decision. If the child does that, then it's able to do that just like an adult. Why would it make a difference? You can even imagine maybe it's like a reincarnated person. We don't know. If they both want it, then yes. But the question is, do they both want it?
Do you think it's morally wrong to kill a criminal?
I mean, this is a very generalized without any specifics, like
Like
what
for
kind of
example,
criminal?
like for example, a serial killer.
That it's morally wrong to
Yes.
end the life of a serial killer.
Yes.
I guess you first have to answer: is it okay to end anyone's life?
Yeah,
that's like the simpler question you gotta answer first.
I mean, I think
that answer has to be yes for the other answer to be even possibly yes.
I think it depends. I told you on the morality is completely subjective. I think it depends, but I think I don't know. Based on your logic, I think it would be justified. Because what if it's self-defense?
Well, so like now we're getting into all sorts of complicated
things
without first discussing the fundamental, more important questions. But you think it's all subjective, so.
Yeah. I think the fundamental is.
So you think it's okay
subjective
for I to stop you from breeding or having a desire for something?
Personally, I mean, there's one thing is what I personally think, but as I'm telling you, I think we can't say.
What can be more important to you than what you think?
Yeah, that's it. That's the thing. That's why I'm telling you, morality is completely subjective because there's no objective way. You have, like I see, you have certain logic to define what is moral. Like if I understand your logic, it kind of bases on the fact that all humans are equal and deserve like fairness, like fair. But that's your morality. Like not everyone shares that morality. Like many people don't share that, and why yours is correct. Like and yeah. Why would yours be correct? And I will also argue that.
But you see it as something subjective, and of course, if it were to be subjective, then it doesn't mean mine is correct. But I'm stating that it's at least some things can be proven to be objectively wrong, whereas you don't think that's true. That's the argument.
Yeah.
If I saw things your way, I would agree that what I'm saying is just one opinion, and mine isn't more important than yours or anyone else's. But my statement I'm making or my belief is that you can objectively prove that some things are wrong.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of opinion. At least not for everything, but for some things.
Yeah, I think that's where we disagree because those things you think we cannot agree, you are basing on certain principles that are your principles, but in history, not everyone has shared those principles.
Maybe the other thing I should put out there is that I think if the circumstances are different, perhaps in one situation one thing is wrong and in the other situation almost the identical thing is not wrong. For example, just the example we just had with world of 10 humans, one is which disabled and the 9 can only feed themselves. You gotta let the disabled one die. It's pure logic. But again, what if there's another world like the 10 people those 9 people can gather 12 portions of food? Obviously,
But what if the thing is that example of the disabled and the 10 persons? I think again it's completely subjective because maybe one of those healthy persons, it's a mother and his son is a disabled. Maybe for her, the correct way is to she die and give it to her son. For her, it depends on what how you say
Yeah,
it?
she's free to make the choice.
Yeah, it depends from what perspective you see it, because um, yeah, it depends on what principle are you saying. What is moral? It's moral is
Because if you want to sacrifice yourself for someone else, that's obviously legal.
yeah,
That's a person's choice.
yeah, but again, we need to define based on what something is correct or not.
If I may say, I think you and perhaps a lot of people think that you can make clear rules, as in when you're coding, like a video game, or any computer program, that you can set clear rules, and if you just follow these rules, then you can apply that to every situation. But I don't think it's like that. I think in every situation you gotta think what is the right thing or what would be the wrong thing to do here. And if you do it, if you look at each situation, because each situation is unique, if you look at each situation, I think you can determine that some things in some situations are wrong objectively.
Yeah.
It's just you cannot follow rules to get there. You have to think
Yeah,
about
yeah,
these.
I get you.
That's how I see it.
I still disagree because, I mean, if logically we can determine something is objectively wrong, it's because not all people will agree with certain things. For example, let's go to an example of the two persons of the same sex, a man and a man. Like many people will disagree with that. Yeah, how do you argue them? You say like we need to respect what others want, and okay, but there's we are putting a principle which is respect of the other interest, of the interest of the other, and that's where we are defining what is correct or wrong based on that principle.
I think you're bringing up a really good point right now. I think you're talking about values, which I think is a very good point because different people have different values.
I think it's the same morality. I think it's what is wrong or right.
Fine to have different values. I think it's just wrong if you force your values upon other people.
Here's the thing: let's see it. Let's see it as if there's not much difference between a cow and a human. Like if we like you might think that it is wrong to kill a human, to eat him, but why a cow is correct, why killing a cow is correct. What if a person thinks that it is okay to kill a human and eat him just like a cow and eat him? Now you may say like, no, in principle all humans are equal of fairness, and that's my principle. But look at history, like not all civilizations have followed those principles, and they have prevailed and grown following other principles. Do you understand me? Like, yeah, like it is very subjective. Depends on the person, on the population, and yeah.
I think there's an important distinction, and I do think it's really good that you bring up values, but I think values are different from what's objectively, like there are like, so I do think people have different values, and that's fine, and different societies and cultures have different values, but to force those values upon others, I think is wrong. Like for example, the 10 people example with one like a handicap or like a disabled person out of the 10. I think you made up a very good point about what if a mother, it's like that person has a mother, and that mother wants to sacrifice itself for that should be fine, but the mother cannot force others to sacrifice them for that like her value might be that this disabled person is my son, and my value is that I value this person more than I do me. I want to sacrifice me for my disabled child. That's fine, and that person should be free to make that choice, but that woman cannot force any of the others to also sacrifice them for that child. So that woman is fine to have her own values and make that choice for her to sacrifice her, but she cannot make others sacrifice them.
I think we will need to be more rigorously with definitions. I think we logically we could reach the same view. I think we could agree if we like go more rigorously on definitions and we go more deeply into the topic, because if we both have correct logic, we should agree on the same things. We should agree on that, like based on the same information. If we have correct logic, we should reach the same viewpoint. Do you think?
I think probably, yeah.
But we should go more deep into definitions, because maybe we are not meaning the same. We should define first what is morality. We should define and yeah, but let's do it for maybe another video.
Okay.
I will be very happy to do that. In fact, here in my university, I was part of the debate club, philosophical debate club, and I really like these topics.
Okay, that's cool.
So yeah, I don't know if you want to end it, or we can continue tomorrow if you like.
Maybe we continue tomorrow then. All right, second day. Just had really nice taco dinner. Really enjoyed that. Mexican milk was really good. So for the second day, I want to give you the opportunity to perhaps talk a bit more about the childhood bullying and perhaps your tumultuous family situation as you alluded to. Like, what do you want to share about that, if anything?
Yeah. So yeah, in my teenage years, there was always problems in my house. My parents always fought each other. It was kind of a toxic environment, and when I got into middle school, that middle school was very toxic environment, and also I was the youngest of all my generation, of all the classes, and in age and in height. So like I was a very good victim, and that kind of was the start of what caused me OCD. Also, I had bad diet because I would stop eating, for example, during recess, during breaks, during class breaks, because I wasn't really like I wasn't as happy, so I didn't really want to eat much. So that also contributed in. I'm pretty sure that contributed in the OCD. So I started getting like obsessive anxieties about things. I will start worrying a lot about certain things, and that's how I started developing OCD. And yeah, I mean, as years went by, sometimes it completely went away, sometimes it came back. I do think there's like biological factors that make you more likely to have that kind of behavior.
So this was like I think if I remember correctly, 13, 14-year-olds?
Yeah. So yeah, that was all my teenage years, and then at what point when I was 18, like for like that, it got very very bad, and that's when I skipped school. Like for 1 year, I stopped school, and my OCD got very bad, but extremely bad, to the point that like it is normal to wash your hands like 30 seconds, right? Like sometimes I will take 30 minutes, 40 minutes washing my hands. Like I was just so obsessed about doing things right and stuff like that.
Protecting yourself from bacteria. Right?
Yeah, and chemicals, bacteria, chemicals, and I just. But the funny thing is that I was actually happy. I mean, I had very bad OCD, but I was generally happy. But not as happy as when my OCD was less. But when I wasn't dealing with an obsessive thought, like I was generally happy. Like I was fine. It's just that a big part of my day was dealing with obsessive thoughts, and that's what made my life a bit worse. But that time is nowhere near compared as now. Like right now, yes.
So you talked about like your family situation, where it was toxic, and it might have been a cause of anxiety, perhaps the best word to choose. Do you want to talk more in detail about in what ways your family situation is toxic? So the thing I am most curious about is how it impacted you and how it might have contributed to your OCD.
Yeah, so just to be more specific, like for example, in my house, like my parents had like weird rules, but it was a result. It's a complex issue, but like sometimes they didn't want me to go out and socialize with friends and stuff like that. They wanted me to stay in the house. And many times, like because of conflicts between them, I didn't socialize also with my family members and cousins and all that stuff. So like they contributed a lot in me being isolated, and that with you add the fact that on school I was the youngest one, and also I was like very nerd, like very interested in things that usually young people don't are interested. So like also I didn't feel so I was isolated. I didn't feel good at school. My parents made me more isolated. So all of that added, I started like my mood started getting lower, and also my diet was bad. I also stopped exercising, and I think my body in reacting to that, it started like giving me more anxiety, anxious thoughts, and since I didn't know how to handle at that time OCD, I will pay attention to those fears, and they get bigger because you pay attention to them. They get bigger, and that's how I ended up with very bad OCD.
Makes sense.
But I do think I think that my brain does tend towards OCD behavior, but I don't think like it's.
Can I ask why you say your brain rather than you?
Well, I think it's the same, but I tend toward OCD behavior, and I specify this because, for example, in a bad situation, what happened to me, I started having this behavior, but other people go into other directions. Like other people fall into addictions, other people fall into depression, like a sad mood, and me I fall into anxiety. So I think every individual falls into different, holes, different pit holes.
For sure. Kai, I spoke to last week, he talked about coping through things like weed and alcohol.
Yeah, everyone, for example, I have tried those substances and they really are, like, I don't have any interest, and like for me the thing has been anxiety. Like I that's what happens when I'm in a bad mood, it's anxiety. And yeah, so every individual has like their different, I don't know, vulnerabilities. I don't know how to tell it. So yeah,
Tendencies
or coping mechanisms, maybe.
Tendencies or unique attributes, something along those lines.
So yeah, that's basically what happened. And like that was my only, like when I was already 18, 19, 20, that was my only issue. Like I only had OCD. And skipping to now, like I now have a Post SSRI Syndrome, which is like something like it's hell. Like it's something like one never imagines.
Okay. You wanna do the 6 questions?
Yeah. Let's go to your questions.
Okay. So yeah, I asked these of every guest and I answered them myself in the first episode. First question, what are the root causes of your suffering?
I mean, it depends on what suffering, but the current suffering, the root cause is...
All of your suffering, I guess.
I mean,
could be separate things, could be separate sufferings with different...
I think it's better to focus on the current suffering, because if I talk about all my life suffering, I will have to find someone to blame. And I think that's a more... It's harder to do that, because I will have to blame someone or many people. And yeah, I think that is harder to do. Like if we consider all my suffering, the causes will be many things. So I think it's going to be harder. But talking about my current suffering, it will be the SSRI, which I think it's the main fault. I think it's the health authorities, more than anything, more than psychiatrists, more than doctors, more than anyone. I think it's the health authorities, because they are supposedly they need to check that medicine is safe and things like that. And I don't know why they don't put attention to this. Like it might be like I don't know, like a severe case of corruption, or maybe is the fact that depression and post SSRI syndrome kind of overlap in some symptoms, and then may confuse those who aren't knowledgeable. So maybe it's ignorance also has to do. I don't know, but I think health authorities are the ones that should be doing something about this.
I think this is a very good question. Like, it's at least for 4 years it's been clear that there's no scientific backing to the serotonin deficiency theory, but these drugs are still on the market 4 years later. So health authorities, why, how is this possible? I think it's a very good question.
Yeah.
We can only speculate. I don't think we can answer because we're not the health authorities, but.
I mean, and it's very obvious that there's many people affected by psychiatric medication. I mean, this slurred speech, this, like, I have difficulty speaking because of the SSRI. Like, this didn't happen before. But yeah, it's very obvious. Like you have people dealing with withdrawal syndrome, you have people dealing with PSSD, Post SSRI Syndrome, you have people dealing with akathisia, and many conditions caused by these medications. And you can find thousands of people online, but to the authorities, it's non-existent. To the psychiatric science, it's not in exist. Well, to the psychiatric religion, I don't know how to tell it.
I mean, if you gotta rename your manual to include the word scientific, you're that's speaking volumes about how insecure you are about being scientific.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's like it's very obvious. There's many people damaged, but they don't want to recognize. Probably because there's going to be a lot of legal consequences if they recognize all this damage that has happened to many people. Like I assume many lawsuits may happen, but
yeah, like psychiatry and like pharmaceutical companies would be like beyond bankrupt. Like the amount of people that have been harmed and the extent to which have been harmed, like all pharmaceutical companies and probably a lot of people in the government, like these authorities you're speaking of, they would all be like bankrupt, if you ask me.
And for example,
again, it's been at least I've maybe heard that there were that certain authorities knew a lot longer that there were issues with SSRIs, but it's been 4 years at least that it's been clear that there is no scientific backing for the serotonin theory, and it was a theory in the first place. It was never proof.
Yeah.
And these drugs alter, like literally rewire your brain, alter over 99% of the 500 teleconnect. It's like these are intense drugs, and yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say something, but I got confused with.
I forgot.
Yeah, it's because also there's people they distracted me.
You want to go to the second question now?
Yeah, let's go to the second part.
Okay, second question. This is a good one. Would you be helped by being locked up, stripped of your rights and liberties, and subjected to involuntary brain alteration, with a risk of being restrained to beds, tortured, and being electrocuted?
No, of course not. I don't think. Well, there might be. I mean, if someone is about to jump off a building, I guess it may be justified to try to force him to not jump off the building, but drugging him with
prevent, but yeah.
Yeah, prevent. Yeah, but kidnap him and drugging him with several substances, it's definitely crazy.
Yeah. And I think I kind of agree. If like someone's about to jump off a building, it's reasonable to prevent that person from jumping off the building, but to lock that person up and like in some severe cases electrocute that person, like what are you thinking if you think that that's going to make the person less likely to jump off a building? Like if the person wanted to jump off a building after the person gets locked up and like possibly electrocuted, the person's only going to be more likely to jump off a building, or what? Like what are these people thinking?
I mean, locking up the person might be justified because maybe, I mean, you prevent that person and the next day he goes and jumps, right? But drugging the person with psychiatric drugs that we know that they have many issues, and electrocuting the person and do all these primitive treatments or primitive experimental treatments.
Treatments is generous.
Experimental drugs.
Just experiments.
Experiments,
experiments.
Yeah.
For what purpose? I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no clue.
But yeah, it's definitely crazy. I think there's many damaged people that their lives has been destroyed just for I have a very good friend, a female friend from Spain that had a bad situation in her life, and she was locked up. but she had like a tragic situation in her life. So she was very sad, and she, like a friend of her, decided to maybe they should lock her up. And in Spain, apparently, just like in Singapore, like people can make you to lock you up to a psychiatric facility. So they lock her up, and they force her to take psychiatric medications. And right now she is part of the damaged community. So she was completely forced to take the medication, and it's like the I was going to mention the vaccine, but I think that's like a very controversial topic. But yeah,
I feel like it's getting less controversial by the day, but let's move on to the third question. Would you be helped by drugs that alter over 99% of the about 500 trillion connections in your brain?
No. I mean, definitely these psychiatric medications are very invasive, and I think they might be helpful, but they should be used in the last option. Like you can try many options and use them as last resort, and they are definitely very invasive. They do a lot of change in the brain. It's just a crazy idea, and it's crazy that I took them. I should have never took them, but I didn't know. Like psychiatrists sell them as they are very safe. But yeah, once you get the damage, you are done. Many people don't get it. I think the majority of people are able to not have a significant damage, but those that get the damage, they are done. Nothing else to do currently.
Okay. Fourth question, would you be helped by paying someone to listen to your problems and potentially give you unsolicited tips and advice on how to be and how to live your life? Essentially, do you think you would be helped by therapy?
Can you repeat?
So the way I phrased it's super nice, to be fair. So like, would you be helped by paying someone to listen to your problems? Would you be helped by therapy?
Okay, I understand. No, if they can't give me a solution, I don't think I will be helped. Just to be listened to, personally, it doesn't help me. It will help me if they can actually give me a solution. Like sometimes I use like AI as a therapist. Well, I wouldn't say a therapist, but many times I tell the AI my problems, and many times it is actually very useful. It offers you actual solutions, and yeah, I think it completely it's more helpful than paying a therapist. Yeah.
I do it every now and then as well. I prefer speaking to people, but sometimes I speak to Grok, so yeah.
Yeah, I also speak to Grok. I like Grok better than ChatGPT.
Question number 5. What would help you? Is there something I or anyone watching can do to help you?
I mean, of course there's many things, but like I will only ask to share the message that SSRIs can damage people, and Post SSRI Syndrome is a real condition, and that, like, I think sharing this message is very important, and yeah.
Okay. If you could change the sixth and the last question, if you could change 3 things about the world, what would they be?
3 things about the world. Okay, so it's let me think. Change 3 things about the world. It's a hard question. I think I'm getting too deep into the philosophical thought of that, because I mean, I think that if I have the power to change 3 things, I mean, I don't know, can I go with magical stuff? Like, maybe I will choose, like, no one, like, everyone gets healthy. Like, I don't know if that could be an answer, like, everyone gets good health. Could that be an answer?
I think it can be.
Yeah, another thing will be I will change the political system of the world. I think all the world is connected in some way, and has certain political system all the world, because if a country decides to completely have their separate system, like they are pressured by the other world, by the rest of the world, so all the world is kind of connected. I will also change that, the global system, and yeah, I mean that if magically I can change like something, I mean, why wouldn't I just choose like everyone be happy now?
Okay, that's good. That's the end of the questions. Then I guess I do have two questions based
Yes.
on the things we talked about yesterday and just in general.
Yes.
I guess I'll start by asking those, and I will also ask you, as I ask every guest, where there's anything else that you feel like talking to me about on camera. But I guess I'll start with the two questions first.
Sure.
So one thing that I thought of earlier today, after one of our conversations yesterday, you said that you think that death is the end, and there won't be anything after that.
The what? Sorry.
Yesterday you said that after you die, you think there won't be anything after.
Okay.
You
Yes.
would like for there to be
Yes.
things after,
Yes.
but you don't
Of
think
course.
there
Yeah.
will be
I
anything
would
after.
like. Yeah.
So my question is, or first, I mean, essentially my question is why? Like you said, there's no proof that there is something after you die, but there also isn't proof that there is nothing after you die. There also isn't any proof that death is the end. So why do you choose to believe that there's nothing after you die, even though there's no proof that there's something, but there's also no proof that there's nothing?
It's a complex topic. Okay, so is there? Okay, I think there's a stronger argument in favor of there not being anything after dying, because I mean one argument is that the person dies and you never again have objective evidence that the consciousness of that person exists anymore. Like that will be one argument. Another argument will be that as we understand consciousness and decision making of each person, emotions, everything is in the brain, and it involves neurotransmitters, it involves many things, and when you die you can objectively see that that isn't working anymore. So like there's many arguments, and I think the strongest argument against this will be that we can't 100% affirm that nothing else exists after that person died, and that is true. We can't affirm that when we die everything stops for us. We can't affirm that, but I mean all evidence points towards there isn't, but we can't affirm. I think science can't never affirm something, but it can it does can affirm.
Actually, I think it's pretty hard to prove anything.
Yeah, it's hard to prove anything, and I think it's easier to disprove things, but yeah.
Okay. And the second question I had So it seems like you believe quite strongly that the the symptoms of the post SSRI syndrome, that those are the result of like physical things wrong with your brain. I think yesterday you described it that after you took the drug, I think it was February 2023 the first time, that it felt like you, I think you said you only took the pill once and it felt like something kind of disconnected, perhaps
2024.
even a year 24, or even disconnected your brain or something. That's how I remember you describing it. Do you think there's any chance that there's also um, like that there might be non-physical things, like such as emotional things that are contributing to?
No, not by any chance. I don't think, definitely not, because my symptoms haven't varied a bit. Like if there was something emotional, maybe I could tell you like one day I actually felt like a bit better, like I had a bit more sensibility. But like since this happened, it has been completely stuck. No change, absolutely. Not even in my dreams. Like I completely. Yeah, I think by now enough time has passed that if there was something more, at least I will see a slight variation, but it's completely stopped.
Okay. Those were my questions. Is there any other topic like you feel like talking about on camera or?
Yeah. How much time has passed? Okay. Yeah. So I think I would like to talk a bit more about psychiatric damage. I think this is the main thing I have been raising awareness and doing activism because of psychiatric damage. I think both of us has been victims of psychiatry, and the thing is that for the rest of people, those that have no involvement to psychiatry, we are like crazy people, right? Like they look at us like psychiatric patients. So that's also something that makes it a lot harder to deal with this situation. And many of us that are psychiatric patients really, I entered this area just because a neurologist told me, I think you're depressed, take this. Like, just as simple as that, this is how I'm now a psychiatric patient. And yeah, like I think we need to do many things. One, we need to raise awareness into normalizing that psychiatric patients are also normal people like everyone else, because the rest of people need to understand that we actually are sane people. I mean, there are some people that are not very sane, but there can be insane people in the psychiatric patient group and in the rest of the people. Like there's insane people in every group.
Psychiatrists think that electrocution cures diseases. I mean, that's about as insane as it gets to me.
Yeah,
personally.
also there's many psychiatrists that are very insane and they should be in prison, and there has been many psychiatrists that have been sent to prison. Like I have heard cases that like a psychiatrist used to like rape one of his patients and stuff like that. And like apart from normalizing that, like psychiatric patients are like normal people, it's the raising awareness about psychiatric medication, that they are not very safe. They are not safe medication.
Yeah, I would say drugs, not medication.
Well,
personally.
drugs, yeah, drugs, and they are also very invasive. Like it's not something small that do to your brain. They actually do a lot of change.
Yeah, they rewire over 99% of
Yeah.
the 500 trillion connections in your brain.
Yeah, it's very crazy. Like
over 99%. It's basically your entire brain that gets rewired.
yeah, it's very crazy. I even like probably doing illegal drugs are probably like less invasive than some psychiatric drugs.
Yeah, and most importantly, most of these drugs, illegal, some legal, you are in control. You are taking them or not taking them, depending on what you want. Whereas, maybe not in every case, but in a lot of cases with psychiatric drugs, actually in a lot of cases with psychiatric drugs, it's not you who are in control. It's either you're listening to your psychiatrist because you trust your psychiatrist and your psychiatrist knows best because he's an expert in this. So you take them because the psychiatrist who's the expert tells you to, or in some cases you're even locked up and you're injected with the drugs, or you're forced to take them. And I and there's another person on X, his handle is 5Redkin, but the both of us were tortured for our refusal to take psychiatric drugs, which
yeah, that's another. The third point is that like psychiatry, from the root, it is like it is, how can I say, like wrong from the root. It is wrongly built. It is based on, I don't know why they don't change the base of psychiatry, the structure. I sometimes feel that psychiatry is made in a way to sell more medication. Like it goes
drugs, but
drugs. Like it goes hand in hand to the drugs. Like they go together. It's part like a money making medical area.
I say it's not medical, but
well, yeah, I mean you're right, but formally it is considered a medical area when it shouldn't, as it is today. That's the third point. I think it's pretty obvious, and the rest of the people don't look at this because most people are not involved in any way with psychiatry. And I think another important point is that I've seen also that sometimes psychiatry is used as a weapon, for example, with political persecution. Like I remember there was once, like it happened many years ago, there was I think it was a Google whistleblower, or I don't know from which company, but it was a whistleblower, and I think it was a note involving Project Veritas. I'm not sure, from the US, and I think Google, or I'm not sure if it was that company, but they they accused him of being mentally ill, and that's the thing, that many times it can be used as a political weapon.
So essentially a corporate whistleblower in the US, it sounds like,
yes,
was silenced or discredited via psychiatrists labeling him as a crazy person, not to be trusted.
I have seen those cases, or for example, in divorces, many times I have heard of cases where I don't know, the woman or the man accuses the other of being mentally ill, and it gets to a point. I mean, it can be used as a weapon, mainly if you have contacts. Maybe a psychiatrist, and he helps you to accuse that other person. And once you are considered a psychiatric patient, you basically lose human rights, basically. And it's an issue that has to be brought up, but most people ignore it because they see psychiatry as something. I mean, if they are not involved, they see it as something not related to them. And
one thing I'll touch on, we were in the car earlier, you were talking about an area, Monterrey, that's considered kind of dangerous. Can you say what the name of this area?
Yeah, I was telling Frank about La Colonia Independencia in Monterrey. it is considered as one of the most dangerous places in Monterrey. And yeah.
Yeah, and you told me that basically people are told not to go there and stay away from there because it's dangerous and it's not a safe place to go. To me, an area like that is kind of similar to how society sees, I say, victims of psychiatry, where people have been labeled as sick or ill, like they're mentally ill or mentally sick, labeled as such. I think that society sees us similarly. Like, I think society sees us as dangerous because, you know, some of us get locked up for supposedly being a danger to others. I was locked up 3 times for 3 weeks each time, supposedly, for being a danger to the person I care about the most. It's insane. And so I think a lot of society sees us as dangerous and people to stay away from, just like some of those slums or this, I remember the name in Monterrey.
Well, here's another side of this topic is that, of course, there is, we need to also, for our safety, we need to recognize patterns. For example, if a place has certain reputation, like, it is likely that that if we visit that place, we may have a negative experience, and also
like is it, you say, just because of a certain reputation we might have a negative experience visiting that, but
no, the reputation might signal us that there's a likelihood of experiencing a bad thing. So
but that's all quite vague, and I think when a place like that slum in Monterrey, it's, again, I haven't been there, so I don't know, but I think it's perhaps a reputation of such places got ruined similarly to how the reputation of some of us get ruined by psychiatrists.
The thing is,
I don't know, because I haven't been there, and I also don't know every victim of psychiatry. Some of them might not be nice people, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's different, because if talking about psychiatric patients, there's, like, currently today, I think the big majority of psychiatric patients are people that have depression, anxiety, and all those conditions that maybe they are not even real conditions. So the talking, for example, about people that are dangerous, I think in psychiatric patients there of course might be a percentage of people that are dangerous, but I think it's very small compared to La Colonia Independencia. I think I think it might be, like, I think it might be riskier to visit this place than to meet a psychiatric patient.
You think it might be, you don't know. And I think the point I would make on this topic is that it's dangerous to listen to what others tell you, because you don't know. Like, others might be wrong, or something might be bad for that person but not bad for everyone. Like, one bad experience doesn't mean everyone's gonna have a bad experience. Might have been bad luck, or could be so many people might be lying for personal gain, like you said. Some people discredit like the political stuff.
Yeah, but when many people say something, it is more likely, like the probability towards that, it is more true. For example, if I see in Google Maps a restaurant with very good reviews, then it is more likely that it is a good restaurant. If I see one that has many bad reviews, it is most likely a worst restaurant.
Yeah, but I think there's a very big difference between this example and what we were talking about. Because this example, there are real people and multiple real people who left bad reviews, whereas with psychiatric patient victims, it's usually one psychiatrist who tells the entire world that this person is bad and someone to stay away from. It's usually one psychiatrist, or sometimes there's a few people around the person. Like, I think this happens very frequently. I think it's very, very often the case that, and again, Kaya talked to last week, his parents pushed him to see a psychiatrist. So I think there are very many cases where parents don't like the way their child turned out, or their child reflects bad on them, and they can't accept that, so they choose to think that their child is sick, so they get the child to go to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist will say, oh, this child is sick and this child is someone dangerous. So in that case, it's like the parent, like a few people around the person and a psychiatrist.
Yeah,
and
but
the last thing I would like to say is, even on that slum in Monterrey, like how much of this reputation comes from people who actually live and know about that slum. I'm sure that a lot of people,
I get your point. What you're saying is that maybe this reputation is not like from, like it is not backed by good evidence. I think that is your point. Like
people say,
like in the Google Maps example, maybe the fact that it's many people and it is like actually putting each their vote, it is more trustworthy,
it's people
right?
with direct knowledge.
Yeah, I know, get your point.
They could be lying about the reviews, and it could be specifically putting good or bad reviews for some reason. But like with this other stuff, it's like people choose to agree with what others think or what others say.
But rather
than think for themselves.
Yeah, I get your point now. But for example, talking about this place, this dangerous place, like it's not that I listen to what people say, is that like we know that there, like they sell drugs, they sell weapons, and like we know they do dangerous stuff there, like so I mean, if we go there, I think maybe most likely nothing will happen, or I don't know, maybe they are going to ask us at one point, like, what are you doing here, like go away or something like that. I don't know, but it is a fact that they do dangerous things there, like that's a fact. I don't even know if police gets up there.
I'm not saying that it's not dangerous. I'm just questioning whether the consensus is true, because I personally, I've never been there. I don't know. People are telling me it's dangerous. You've told me it's dangerous. It may be. I haven't been there. I don't know. And I guess the last point on this comparison analogy I want to make is that I think if you listen to psychiatrists and like don't talk to victims of psychiatry and like see them as dangerous and don't interact and stay away from them, I think that doesn't help us. Like if people stay away from us because they think we're dangerous, I think that only makes we get more isolated. And I think to an extent with Islam it might be similar. Like it might be dangerous, it might not be a very nice place, people there might be in a bad situation, but if everyone avoids it and stays away from there, how's it ever going to get more pleasant? Like all the good stays away from them and they are isolated with all their bad shit.
I get your point, but I think
and that's another thing I just talked to you about in the car earlier. There are a few like huge skyscrapers in Monterrey that to me make absolutely no sense, because if you wanted to build office space in Monterrey and wanted to do it efficiently, you would maybe build a few tall buildings, but not like, you told me that one of the buildings is like the tallest structure in Latin America. Like these skyscrapers, it's like Monterrey is fairly flat, and then there's this huge skyscraper that is not money efficient. So they've been spending money on like a skyscraper just for the appearance, really. At the same time as there are people in the slums who are like, stay away from there because it's dangerous. Don't do anything for them. Just leave them with their shit.
I get your perspective, but the thing is a complex issue, because it's not like we shouldn't we shouldn't be afraid of them, and we should all go there, and with time it will get to a better place. Like we need to see why it's dangerous. Maybe the government actually allows dangerous activity there in purpose, and that's why it's dangerous. Like I think it's a very complex issue. Going back to
You're right, but we're theorizing. We the two. I mean, I have very little idea. You have probably a little bit of idea because you live in Monterrey.
But
we're still kind of theorizing, right?
But I think it's good to terrorize it because, I mean, if you research, you will see that it's actually dangerous, and you can save people's life from going there, like, or at least from being assaulted. Like, I think it's good to listen to what other people say. When talking about psychiatric patients, that's why I say we need to normalize that psychiatric patients are generally, like mostly, not dangerous, and we need to change that reputation, because in this case of psychiatric patients, that's actually, I think, a bad like a wrong reputation. In the case of this colony Independencia, I guess it's a correct reputation. Like it is actually dangerous. Well, currently, as I told you, I don't know if currently it's still as dangerous as in the past. But yeah, I think talking about psychiatric patients, I think it's an incorrect reputation that psychiatric patients are dangerous, because nowadays most psychiatric patients have conditions that, in my opinion, shouldn't. I mean, psychiatric conditions are not even well established. I mean, the whole categories of mental disorders should really change. I think they are very primitive.
I don't think they should exist at all, personally. But
well, it depends. Like, for example, there are, of course, certain disorders, brain disorders, that
the brain, and we can cut open my skull and there's probably a brain in there, but does a mind exist?
I mean, I think we might go into very technical detail where we might not be able to discuss it too much because it's very technical. But for example, there's actual conditions like, for example, Alzheimer. Like, I think that's a category that actually exists, unlike depression or anxiety, that it's just a very big spectrum. And like nowadays, everyone, like many people, get diagnosed with depression, anxiety, ADHD, and all that stuff. And like it's it like it's to sell more drugs, it looks like.
I will say the last thing. I do think, or this is what I've also gathered from spending time on X and such, that a lot of people in society find victims of psychiatry. You know, a lot of us have suffered or are suffering, and I think many people do not like to be around people who suffer. I'm not saying this is like a one-on-one perfect analogy with the slum in Monterrey, because that's more like dangerous, and I think this is a bit different, but I think a lot of people find us unpleasant because we're suffering, and I think a lot of people want to live in bubbles and be like, oh, the world is great, it's, you know, so many more material goods than there were decades or centuries ago. It's all so nice today. And then when there are people suffering and talking about suffering, I think they find it very unpleasant.
Yeah, that's something very true. And not only regarding psychiatric patients, like also in general, many people get away of people suffering. Like, I think it's very true, and I think there might be also a biological thing to it. Like, I guess, like biologically, people might get away of depressed people, like of people that don't look happy, and biologically, people might get closer to people that seem happier. I'm sure it has to do with like evolutionary psychology or something like that. Like, yeah, it certainly has to do with something like that. Like, probably, like in the past, if someone was like with bad mood and sad, probably it was related to being sick. Maybe he had a disease, and naturally people got away from it from they to protect like their health, and that allow us to prevail as a species. Most likely has to do with evolutionary reasons. But yeah, that's completely true. Like, in fact, if I go with a random person and I'm all like sad with a bad mood, like it is more likely they just kind of get away from me. But if I come like happy with a good mood, like naturally I will attract people. Like, yeah, so yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, like for example, with this thing that I just mentioned, like how could we, like if we are like sad with a bad mood, if we are like depressed, how could we, how could we interact with people without, like how can we be more charismatic while being in this state? Like, do you have any comments or idea about that?
I think you're asking the wrong question. I think the question that should be asked is how, or either how can others be more empathetic, or why are other people such assholes? Because if there's like a sad, depressed person, like that's more that sucks. That's not cool.
Yeah.
Just like if there's a person homeless or hungry on the street, I don't think that's cool either.
Yeah, I get your perspective. The thing is that, like I told you, naturally people won't do that, and
I think that those people are assholes.
Yeah, we should ideally try to change the behavior of people. No, well, try to change the, how you say, the.
I don't think it's a good idea to try and change people's behavior.
Or no, maybe.
I don't think it's possible. I think people can only change their own behavior.
Like we should try to change the perception of depressed people. Maybe as society we should try to promote the empathy towards others suffering, I guess. Normalize more people suffering, just like as we have like in the past decades normalized many other things. Maybe we should normalize more being empathy and trying to invite more and be more open to people suffering, I guess.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of structural issues probably underlying this. One thing is that it's socially accepted to do such things. I think psychiatry is a very big one, because psychiatry labels these people. There's so many structural issues. For me, I'm quite focused on changing or help, again, through this podcast. Hopefully I can help people understand that there are real tangible causes to human suffering, and that they're not the result of mystical diseases and disorders of a mystical mind, as psychiatry claims, and above all that it doesn't cure diseases. It doesn't help anyone to be locked up, stripped of your rights and liberties, subjected to involuntary brain alteration, some cases restrained to bed cells, restrained for up to 18 hours at some point, to be tortured in some cases, and in the worst case to be electrocuted. Like, what are these people telling to themselves that they think or are deceiving others, and maybe they're not thinking that I don't fucking know what's going on in their heads, that electrocution cures diseases. What is going on in their heads?
Yeah.
If anyone is sick in their heads, it's psychiatrists for believing this crap. And to a lesser extent, the rest of society who goes along with it and supports it.
Yeah.
Electrocution cures diseases, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's a experiment. It's an experiment.
I mean, they did a lot of experiments on Jews in concentration camps.
It's like lobotomy. Like,
Yeah.
do you remember, like in the past, they will get a part of your brain, maybe that will cure you. It's just like, yeah, experimental treatments approved for money.
It's just fucking dumb. Yeah, but I have no doubt that you're right that pharmaceutical companies are using psychiatry as a vessel to make more money.
Yeah, and I don't
There's
think
definitely a
it's.
connection there.
I don't think it's the blame of the pharmaceutical companies. Well, partly yes, but from the other hand, it's the health regulators that approve those things. Like they shouldn't be approving because you as a company, I mean, you want the company to succeed. You have many employees. Each employee just do their jobs, and if they found a new medicine, they will just try to pass the regulator test, and if the regulator tests are very like easy or flexible, I think that's the issue. Like I think the issue is the government that allows it. But yeah, because I mean I assume that between pharmaceutical companies there's also a lot of competition. They want to get more market and stuff like that, and that's where the government should put like you need to be more like the government should protect us from in this case the free market. But yeah.
The more people get labeled as being sick by psychiatrists, the more money pharmaceutical companies make.
Yeah. So yeah, that is all.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, everything
Good?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it then.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Jorge.
Very good.